o'clock local time. I want to we acknowledge and respect the Indigenous peoples within whose traditional lands we're meeting today. I guess we have the alternate director for Selma here. Peyton Keller, you're joining us for board tomorrow, so good to see you. Welcome. To have interested McKellar. McKellar. Okay. We will look for an adoption of the agenda as presented. Papa, your second. Watson, any changes, staff changes? No alterations, so moved and seconded as circulated, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried, thank you. And we've received the minutes from December 10th. They already went to board, not aware of any issues with those, so they're simply received. So today we have a delegation from Nelson Leaf Society, large delegation by the looks of it. Welcome. Recognize at least former Mayor Dooley, Director Dooley from years together on this board. Do you want to introduce your delegation, and then you have a slideshow, I understand, folks.
Thank you very much. First of all, my name is Corey Vielle. I'm the president of the Nelson Leaf Soccer Society. With us today, we've got Maureen St. George, who's the manager of the Nelson Leafs Evo, and Mr. John Dooley, who's the director on the Leafs executive board, and Gord Davis, who is an associate director for the Nelson Leafs board as well. Today, the purpose of the presentation is just to give you a little bit of history on the Nelson Leafs Evo, some of the challenges and some of our goals that we see coming forward, and how we can build some stronger partnerships with both the regional district and area of Nelson. So today I'd like to pass it on to John. He'll continue with the presentation. Thank you very much for the.
Thank you. Chair Jackman, the reason I took on this portfolio was I was one of the founding members of the people when it first started in the mid-1980s. So I had a bit of emotional connection to it. And before he asked me to come on board and help with some of the challenges that we're facing, I was happy to do so. And in our presentation today, we want to look at getting some information to you about the programs and share our recycling successes. And that success actually has put us in a position where we're really stretched for space at our Eco Depot. And we want to explore some short and long-term solutions. And next slide, please. Go to 2 slides, actually. There we go. And I also want to start off the presentation by thanking your staff, Amy and Nakani, for working with us over the years, and our relationship working with the regional district has been fantastic today. You'll see from that slide that has come up there, that's just a brief outline of some of the things we do and some of the products that we're taking. And in that slide, you see the paint antifreeze and motor oil, which is a product that we're taking down there, and that's really it's been a huge success. We just wonder where all that product was going before, when we had that one day where you could bring your product to the van and you just pick it up and take it away. So the Nelson Leafs Hockey Society is a not-for-profit organization. We run the depot, and it's basically the board's run by volunteers. Corinne is our manager at the depot, paid employee, and we have 6 other paid employees there as well at the depot. All members of the Nelson Leafs hockey team are expected, when we have overflow or backup at the depot as far as having too much product on site, to come in and help us out to work, and they're there on a very regular basis. Next slide, please. So the other thing that the depot does, not only do we return profits back into the community in the form of donations to various charities. We also the depot also supports scholarships for hockey players, and we also work closely with service clubs and community groups to help them raise money through bottle drives, etc. We engage in tours of the facility, and we just had the Rotary Club in here last week for a tour, and we have a number of schools to come in and they go through the facility and get an idea how it works, because there's a lot of stuff happens behind the scenes that most people don't realize takes place down there. On the next slide, you'll see a couple of the most recent donations that we've made to Friends of the Family was the most recent one, as well as the Kootenai Lake Hospital Foundation. And I think we've given them, in the last number of years, we've contributed over $110,000 to the Kootenai Lake Hospital Foundation from recycled bottles and cans from the depot. People would come in with their bottles and cans and they'd decide to donate them to a particular cause. So going forward, we're gonna have a charity of the month that we'll be donating to and make that, formalize that a little better, so that'll be a benefit to the community. Next slide, please. Next slide, shows your site down at the corner of Lakeside Drive here. That's the one in the middle. I'm not sure how I ended up with the one on the left, to be truthful with you. I just learned how to do this in the last couple of months or so, putting these slide things together. I've looked at thousands of them over the years, but didn't realize what was involved to put them together. And on the right is the Grove and Arrow site that you currently operate as well. So both of those sites are operated by the Regional District of Central Kootenai and the Resource Recovery. So on the next slide, the Nelson Depot, you'll see the Environmental Services website, and this is your website, identifies the depot as a place to bring your products to. And there's direction there to, if you have a certain product, to bring it to the Nelson Leafs Depot. And that's just another, next slide please, and that's just another example of the working relationship we have with the Resource Recovery at this particular point in time. And on the next slide, you'll see here that zero waste promotes a future without landfills, and that's a long shot, but we're actually one of the contributors to reducing that volume going to the landfill. And that's on your website also. And I went through the plan fairly extensively, and there's no question that one of the driving agenda items here on a continuous basis is how do we divert more product and extend the life of the landfill at Otoshinya as an example. Next slide, please, is the current status. Sorry, back up, sorry, my mistake. Okay, we're one of the top recycling centers in the province, and that's because of the relationship we have with you and the extended amount of product that we take. Since partnering with the Regional District on collection of household hazardous waste, we've recycled 100,000 liters of oil alone. And I was surprised when I seen that number. I was just staggered. And but being around there over the last several months, I'm not surprised at the amount of product that goes through that facility.
John, apologies for interrupting you. Somebody got a webinar or radio or something running? I hear.
It's across the hall.
Is it across the hall?
No, I think it's. I'm glad the iPad.
I can hear a conversation in the background there.
We can just hear you repeating, like it's echoing.
What is that? Echoing. That's it. Okay, thanks.
Coming from mine?
Carry. Don't, it's all good. We're good.
Oh, okay, thank you. On the right is our partners. Top of the list, of course, is Regional District Central Kootenai, City of Nelson, and then the full list there of the partners that we actually work with on a weekly or daily basis to remove products that we recycle in the facility from us. So you can see as we go through these slides, and I'll ask you to put up the next one. As we get through these slides, you'll start to get a feel for the diversity of what happens on that facility. I think we might have, we'll go to the next one. There we go. So on any given day, I threw this one in here. On any given day, we have no idea what might show up down there. So here's an example of a large photocopier, printer, whatever you want to call it. That's that stuff nowadays. They just don't fix them anymore. They take them to the depot, and we find a way to divert them from the landfill. And on the right, you'll see those bags. Some of those are on daily use, but the Lions Club, as an example, Director Jackman from the East Shore can show up with that number of bags on any given day with a big trailer, and we work closely with them, and those donations are go back to them, and they put it back into the community. And we do that with a lot of organizations. But any day that can happen, although in the case of the Lions Club, we have a system with them where they phone ahead and let us know where they're coming. Is that right, Corey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. We provide them with bags.
Yeah. And below, next slide, please. On the next slide, you see now you can recycle your e-bike and your e-bike batteries. And, of course, treadmills. You can bring in a treadmill for those of you who have given up on your New Year's resolution. I did take the treadmill and so on. And you can just imagine, like a treadmill, believe it or not, is 6 feet long. It's 4.5 feet or 5 feet high, so you have to pallet that thing, wrap it and pallet it. The same thing with the e-bikes and the batteries, etc. And on the right side of that slide, you'll see the list of products that we take currently. And then we go to the next slide. And on the next slide, and we do have some handouts here we can give, you can share them. But on the next slide, you'll see this is what's coming down the pipe for 26 and 27. So the list keeps getting longer and longer on a daily basis. And in some of the products in there, as an example, those of you who bought a Santa Claus hat for Christmas with a little flashing lights on it, a little battery in it, now you have to recycle that. The whole hat, not just the battery, but the lights and the whole hat is, so we're gonna get buried down there into the Halloween stuff and, Christmas, and of course we've got St. Patrick's Day coming up here shortly, and I've got a couple of those hats myself.
I have one.
Party supplies, anything with those little batteries that, turn them on and they flash or whatever. And move to the next slide, please. So, we've had incredible community buy-in, as I touched on already. So we average roughly 4,600 visits a day. That's incredible when you think about it. I'm sorry, a month, I beg your pardon. And that's a staggering number when you think about, in a month, considering we're open like 6 days, 5.5 days a week, really, to deal with that many people coming on a regular basis. And some not coming up all the cans, but like Director Cunningham showed up here last week. Was a small printer you had, or returns? Just forget what you brought back, but there's just different products, and our staff down there has to be able to adjust them, turn on the dime to take those, put them in the right place. You can't put the oil and gasoline beside the batteries, and et cetera, et cetera. We have room for questions at the end for anyone that's has a question for us. So we handled 9,412 pieces last year. That's an amazing number of products that's going. Never in our wildest dreams did we think that could happen when we started people in the mid-1980s, and we were just taking bottles and cans and a few other small containers like that. Now it's big jugs and you name it, I go through there. So our challenges: space, demand driven, obviously, and regulatory requirements. And there are regulatory requirements from this board, from the municipalities, and from the provincial and the federal government, and what has to be recycled. So we're actually at the mercy of all of those orders of government when you decide at this table to support or not the expansion of recycled items. All of that has an impact on what happens with the people. It's the only one in the area that's taking back this variety of products. So next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry, I beg your pardon, I should have. There we go. So here's an example of what can happen to us on any given week. And this is overflow. And on the right is a temporary container where we put the overflow of these empty containers in. And these are all oil hazardous waste, so household hazardous waste of some kind. The slide on the left is the pickup. And you can see this man here is separating the drums out, and he has to label each one of those, put them on a pallet and put them in the back of the truck. But if you look carefully at the signs at the back of the truck, you'll see that it's just about full. So he'll get the ones that are labeled into that, and he'll leave us with the rest. And over time that accumulates, and we'd have to try and negotiate with them to make an extra visit to the depot and haul that stuff away. And it's not that easy to get a truck just on a phone call. They're coming from Kelowna or Vernon or somewhere like that, and if a snowstorm happens in the winter time, they can be delayed. COVID was a real killer because people weren't showing up for work, etc. It's hard to find drivers. So getting product in and out of the facility sometimes can be a real challenge. Next slide. And below on the next slide, you'll see there's a mezzanine there that we had to build to take overflow. And that's mostly bottled from our cans that go up there, aluminum cans, that they're light enough to lift up there to take the cassette and move them around. So that can be jammed to the rafters on any given day. And the trucks come and they haul it away. So you can see the overflow in the two slides on the right and left. These cans and bottles now, right, will be mainly donations that come in. And we'll have to separate those and process them. On the left are all used oil containers for the most part. And that's a temporary shed that we put out there to accommodate that. It doesn't have a proper floor in it or roof on it. And, you know, we could show up there on any given day and somebody be sleeping in it. It's just what happens. Next slide, please. So we're offering up another short-term solution here. And that's the installation of, hopefully, we have a variance application in with the city to install 2 more shipping containers. And I just want to make it very clear, this is a short-term solution. We just can't continue to stack these containers up on the property. We're outside of the city bylaw as it is with the 2 that we have. And they're going to sit in this corner here, hopefully if we get permission. If you go to the next slide, you see the existing containers. And you can go to the next one, please. And it's more or less the same picture, but those are secure containers. They're elevated on a foundation so that we're containing any oil or hazardous waste to spill that's contained inside the container. If we had a flood, we're high enough that we wouldn't be flooded out on that particular site. So the containers are lifted off the ground roughly 12 inches. So the new ones will also have to be raised as well. We were very fortunate that Corinne made an application for a grant and we got new containers paid for. The other one's coming from the regional district and we're hoping for the best around this board. You can be able to support us getting the second container somewhere within central or the waste program in the regional district. Or it may have to come from outside, I'm not sure. But we really didn't want to be in a position where we had to buy another container and there's a lot of expense involved in moving those and setting them up. So we can move on to the next step solutions for sustainability. Just keep going on there. Yeah. So we have short and long term goals there that you can see on the screen and in your package. We can move to the next slide if you wish. So we wanted to show you potential opportunities. Nothing's written in stone here. We've made a similar presentation to the city of Nelson because 2 of the sites we've been talking about are actually located in the city of Nelson that we could put a second site, not leaving the one we're on, but staying on the one we're on, but we'd have a satellite site within the close proximity, we're hoping, to our operations so we wouldn't have to add too much more staff to be able to manage it, etc. You're probably thinking, did we look anywhere else? Well, in actual fact, we looked at 9 different sites in and around the city of Nelson. We believe it's really important that the depot be in the city. And the reason we say that is because it's a bit of a hub. And a lot of the people that use the facility are less fortunate than we are in this room today. And they come there with their shopping carts and bags on their back, etc., etc. And, you know, having that facility available to them in town is a bit of a blessing in disguise for them. And in actual fact, over the years, we've had a number of those people transition into working for us and have established themselves and have full-time jobs now, and not only with us, but with other people in the community as well. So it's a little bit of a transition house, and we're proud of that role as well. So the two sites we're looking at here are on your left, and if you can expand your photo, you'll see the bottom right corner is Cottonwood Park. And just slightly up from that is where the depot exists, Nelson Recycling Center. And to the left and behind that building, there's an empty lot that the city has there. So we looked at that piece of property. That's in close proximity to the depot. The other one is behind the red roof building on the left. And that site is currently being used as a car park for overflow. And those are the two sites that could be used as a satellite site for the depot. We actually envisioned, but that would be entirely up to the board and the powers to be at the City of Nelson. We actually envisioned potentially relocating the green bins from Lakeside Drive onto that site. And we feel with the addition of some of the product we're currently taking at the depot, such as televisions, light bulbs, electronics, oil, household hazardous waste, there'd be ample space left on either one of those sites to accommodate the Lakeside Drive operation. We envision that as a facility where product that would come to that site from the Lakeside Drive location would all be baled and compacted on site, which would reduce the amount of space that's necessary to be able to manage and operate on the site. It's got good, each one of those sites have in and out driveways and would be suitable for a second site for the overflow at the auto depot for the oil, household hazardous waste, televisions and electronics, just as an example. So our ask today, and I formalized this myself, and I want to keep it pretty broad. You go to the next slide from the decision makers at this table, is that the regional district and the City of Nelson continue to work with the Nelson Leafs Eco Depot to develop options for a second site expansion of the depot. And that can be worded at the privy of the board and the chair. And that's our ask. And we hope we have a little bit of time. If you have a couple of questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thanks very much. That was an excellent overview. Time-wise, we usually give 15 minutes, sometimes 20. We're over 20 minutes now, but I have two directors that wanted to ask questions, so we'll maybe entertain those three. We'll see how brief they are. As staff have been taking notes, they will be in contact with you further, I'm sure, and they talk to the city as required. We, as you would know from your previous experience, we don't move recommendations or debate resolutions at the same meeting as we receive a delegation. So we won't talk about wording, but staff have already, I see quite a few notes there.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's go as quickly as we can, and we have a number of other agenda items. We have questions, I guess, about Weatherhead, Watson, McFadden, Director Weatherhead.
If you don't mind, if you could just indulge for a moment or two, I have trouble hearing, and I'm waiting to get my hearing aid sorted out.
Oh,
So please, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, through the chair, to you, John. This unrelated to your constraints there, but what, do you know the estimation of population you're serving in this service?
We get people from Castlegar, from Walls and Pans, also for electronics and hazardous waste. We have people come from the cusp. We've had people come from the East Shore, all over really. Yeah, it's quite a vast amount of people that do come to us because we take more than just bottles and cans.
Yeah, I think the one-stop stuff has a lot to do with the amount of stuff that's actually recycled. People can come with, they can load their car up not only with a bag of cans and bottles that get a little bit of money for, but they can throw in that old radio, the printer, and so on. Yeah.
okay, Board Chair Watson, Director Watson.
Yeah, thanks. Through the chair to delegation, great work. Thanks for everything you do. Hopefully you can hear me, Dr. Dooley. Sorry, John Dooley.
Yeah.
Director Weatherhead asked one of my questions. My two other questions might actually be staff questions. One is, as far as I know, we primarily fund this through central resource, not through all three resources, but it sounds like all three sub-regions are using the facility. So I just want to flag that. And I'm going to go ahead and ask my second question because you might want to answer it. How much are we currently providing to this auxiliary service?
Yes. Okay, so through the chair, it is funded through the central S187 service. We've done surveys in the past to inquire where the residents are coming from. And from that, have a calculation for a transfer from both the west and east that contribute every year, which you'll see in the budgets drop off once we expect to have eco depots established in those areas. And so the EPR programs are funded through the EPR programs. And so they could come from anywhere and it wouldn't impact. It's only the non-EPR household hazardous waste that we have to pay for, that's what that's related to.
And sorry, the question on how much are we currently funding?
Yes, I have that.
We could look at that at budget, give her time to
Yeah, sure,
check
that's
that.
fine.
We'll
Yeah.
go to Director McFadden.
No problem.
You have a question for the delegation.
But it might be, sorry, it might be good to clarify that the majority of our funding is for non-program materials that you have to accept.
Yeah, so we can go through that detail in budget.
That's
We
fine.
do discuss budget at the end of this meeting. Director McFadden, please go ahead.
Yes, through the chair, probably the staff and delegation, part of the question was how much is coming from outside of your local region, because we are looking at opening one in Castlegar, and I believe Creston's already, so really looking at how much of that impact the space that you need.
Yeah.
Because if you're losing like a quarter or a third, because those are coming from those other regions now, that now will have their own,
Yeah.
that's gotta be factored into what spacing you're needing, so probably don't have an answer for that, but if we get an answer, I think that does factor into how much space you will need. If, and I guess the second question I would have for you, specifically the delegation, because they are looking at putting, a request out for Castlegar area, if there is any nonprofits that are looking at formulating something similar, are you guys open to them reaching out to you and asking
Oh,
how you've
absolutely.
done it? Cause I know that's gonna be the challenge, is to find a group that's
Yeah.
wanting to take up this space, and I can think of a few in Casper that might be willing if they knew the model they could use, so.
On that note, it wouldn't be easy to have a standalone just doing, other than the bottles and cans. You know, like, the fact that we have, it's consolidated, it means that it's workable. But if you were to try and do anything separate from the bottles and cans, or the bottles and cans on their own, it's difficult to pull off. We don't have the volumes. In fact, George's done some numbers on our volumes as an example in bottles and cans, and they're pretty flat. They don't really fluctuate very much. You know, the numbers there are pretty consistent. But to your question though, if you look through the slides, you'll see the amount of product that's being added. That's what's causing the challenges. So every year, the government's coming up with more and more product. So the space is gonna be a challenge for us regardless, just because of what's coming online in 26, 27. That's not counting where we are today. So we're busting at the seams today. You add 26 and 27 on, even if you took away some of the customers, we'd still be in a challenging situation, you know.
Thank you.
So,
I can respond to you.
well, let's wait for budget, because it could go down a bit of a rabbit hole, and did want you people to get back to the rest of your day. A little longer than normal for a delegation, but as I said, it's very informative, getting the overall view. And we are currently out for request for proposals for 2 eco depots, Castlegar and Creston. So this is all good this is great timely information for us to have. So I really do thank you for coming. And no doubt our staff will be in contact about your other needs. So thanks very much. It's good to see you.
Thank you very much for the.
I just want to say in closing that, thanks to the staff, it's been excellent to work with. And we had a meeting several months ago, and Uli brought some clarity to the conversation at that time. And he was the man that sent us off on a hunt to look for different sites, etc., and give us some direction. And that really helped us sort of get focused a little bit and Amy and Akani have been helping us ever since, and it's just been a pleasure to work with them, so thanks to everybody for your time.
Good to hear. Thank you. Okay. I will note while they're getting their stuff together, this handout, Emma has put it in the chat for anybody online listening into the meeting, or we have a visitor in the room, member of public. If you want the handout with the products, it's available here. Normally, we try and keep everything on, given to the committee on the agenda so people understand. And I don't know if we could add this to the minutes or if that's getting a little bit too far. We can have that conversation later. Thanks very much. We will go to. Okay, we'll move to item 4.1. This is a report from Heidi. It is the Resource Recovery Facilities operational hours review across the entire regional district, and online.
Yes.
There she is. Do you want to give us an overview, please? The floor is yours, Heidi.
Thanks, and through the chair. The 2024 System Efficiency Study indicated that the RDCK Resource Recovery System provides residents with a high level of service compared to other regional districts, alongside a relatively high cost per capita to pay for this. To reduce the costs and improve equitability of service levels within the RDCK, while still maintaining a high level of service compared to other RDs, GHD recommended the closure of Winlaw, Kokanee Park Marina, and Ryandale Satellite recycling depots, as well as reducing the hours of operation at several other core recycling depots. Staff proposed following these closure recommendations and conducting a review of operational hours at all facilities to optimize service levels across the RDCK. The goal of this review was to both enable residents and businesses to successfully manage their waste while ensuring reasonable and safe working conditions for site staff, and to find a balance between maintaining high service levels while reducing system costs. Staff began conducting an operational hours analysis in 2025 using actual public usage data for the sites where available, and initiated the collection of data at sites where data is currently not available. Attachment A summarizes the traffic patterns for each site where data was available, and Table 2 in the report presents a summary of the proposed hours adjustments resulting from this analysis. While most of the adjustments are relatively minor, one of the more significant recommendations is the closure of the Weimar transfer station and satellite recycling depot. This has been discussed in past years due to the number of facilities available within this geographic area. The Weimar facility provides limited waste disposal and diversion opportunities compared to other resource recovery facilities, and public usage data from this analysis indicate that usage is generally below the minimum ideal traffic level for this type of site. The next closest facilities offer increased waste management opportunities and are located in communities that residents would already need to access for gas and most groceries and home supplies. If this site were to keep operating, it's expected that costly bin wall repairs will be required in the near future. For the region's two busiest facilities, Groman Narrows Transfer Station and Udashinya Landfill, it was noted that 7 days per week service may be considered in the near future, as these communities, the communities that these facilities service continue to grow. For Groman, upcoming changes to residential services in the city of Nelson, with their citywide rollout of organics diversion, could potentially reduce some of the traffic at this site, while potential consolidation of the Weimar and Lakeside facilities at Groman in the future could increase traffic at the site. At Udashinya, anticipated transfer area upgrades will include the installation of a second scale, which will increase the manageable traffic thresholds at this site and thus increase the capacity of the site without the need for additional hours. Staff will reevaluate both of these sites once the above changes have been fully implemented to ensure optimal operating hours. Staff recognize that traffic is not the only way that operational efficiency can be measured, and that waste management behavior also plays an important role. However, behavioral patterns are much trickier to quantify. There's a delicate balance between offering high service levels to maximize diversion at all costs and enabling inefficient site usage by adjusting facility hours strictly around traffic patterns. For physical and mental health and safety of staff of waste facilities, it's important to ensure that traffic volumes are manageable, but at the same time, residents should also be encouraged to stockpile multiple materials and use the sites as efficiently as possible. Offering fulsome services, i.e. waste and core recycling services, for more hours at one location near to where residents are accessing other community services, as opposed to partial services at multiple, more dispersed locations, helps to encourage efficiency both at the individual level and at the facility operational level. Data collection is still ongoing at New Denver, Crescent Valley, Salmo, and Creston Car Wash core recycling depots, but staff wanted to bring forward data analysis and recommendations from this assessment to date, such that hours adjustments for evaluated sites could be considered for 2026. Additional recommendations for adjustments, if required, for facilities in the West subregion and remaining standalone recycling depots will be brought to the JRFC in 2027 once operational changes and data collection and analysis are completed in these areas. This evaluation will also consider the viability of potential consolidation of standalone recycling depots in Nelson and Creston with the nearest transfer station, and will consider diversion data to help us understand the impacts of recent site closures. Thanks.
Thank you, Heidi. I have a question initially from Director Cunningham.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to speak to the recommendation of the case. Only because I read the material and perhaps I realize the numbers that are being done at Weimer. I'd also like to point out that we paid 8 hours for Weimer last year, the year before, apparently the site was busy. The real reason for having the site at Weimer, for those of you who know where the site is, we found the road up to the old garbage dump. And the old garbage dump was never a legal garbage dump, it was a spot at the side of the road where everybody dumped their garbage. And after we opened up, people were able to take it down below to the proper site because they have to drive by it anyway. Now, if you close the site, you know what's going to happen? They're not going to drive 30 kilometers into Nelson to get rid of their garbage. They're going to go to up the mountain and dump it like they did before. That was the exact reason for starting Weimer in the first place. And the other thing is that what's happening to this proposed for Salmo, and where Salmo is, it's the same distance. I mean, Weimer's right stuck in the middle. Salmo itself, of course, has garbage pickup, at the home, so they're not restricted with regard to that. But in Weimer, that doesn't happen. So you take your own. For me, I'm in town every second day or something, it's not a big deal. But most of Weimer either works out of the house or the bush or things like that, or it goes to places like Castlegar for work or Trail for work. Neither of which really are in line with collection of garbage. And I'd like to suggest, and I don't know, that reconsideration be given to the closure of that possible site.
Okay,
This might require a motion.
they're all individual standalone, I guess.
Okay.
A recommendation could have a recommendation of no act, but it's not reconsidered, it hasn't been approved. There could be a recommendation for no action, I would think would be one option.
Whichever.
Either Julie or Stuart, other ways to deal with for the committee to discuss, to not act on the staff recommendation.
To the chair, you just not move it, or you can do no further action. Either or, it depends if you want something in the minutes that specifically states it, or if you move past that as an option, and we just not move it as a recommendation.
If we don't, this has come up before, like we've discussed Greendale before, we've discussed some of it, so. Whether the recommendation is no action or we have no recommendation, it still leaves itself hanging, whereas it'd be nice to have something that's a little more definitive.
So what would you suggest here?
Or to the chair, if it's permanent, leave it open, then you can say that staff not act on their recommendations to close the Weimer transfer station. If it's something where you want to revisit it, say in a year, 2 years, you can make a motion to that.
Might make more sense, but it's up to you, Director.
Okay, and I'd like to suggest that. Unfortunately, I don't have the CEO's wording, but I said, for those of you who could record word for word, I'd like such wording to be placed in.
Well, CEO Horn Stuart recommended two different things. Either that we have direction to staff, no further action, or that we refer it potentially for a year for further investigation. Those are two separate things. We could also have some more discussion if you want, and revisit the wording. I see Dr. Lockwood's hand.
Sure, I think that those who have certain things from there may wish to speak to it. Say, for example, I did not speak to the Salmo one, but it would be pointed out that all the Salmo of the way. And there is not that much that actually goes there. It is, however, the only one for the area people in the southern area of Area G get. And of course, a lot of people in Salvo moving stuff that basically isn't collected at the door also use that site. Like I said, I'm not speaking to that one on page 6, which is the requirement, and therefore, I'd like to say that the staff here, I want to do more than reconsider. I'd like to say, set it aside for a year and reconsider it now.
So you're moving to, yeah,
Recommendation.
defer consideration of that recommendation.
Recommendation.
For close. Do we have a second for that? Is that clear enough? Second that. Second. Okay, and so the motion is to refer this for a year, defer this for a year, essentially.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I'll take speakers to the motion. Did you want to speak further to the recommendation?
No, I think I've said enough. I think
Okay.
for the recommendation there. I realize the numbers are low, but the point is, the dollars brought in by the people from that area, tax money with regards to this service, is well in excess of the, what it costs to do one hauling for about 2 hours every Sunday. And it certainly keeps the bush clean.
Okay,
That was the original reason for doing it there.
so I do have speakers. I have Director Lockwood, Director Woodward, Director Lockwood, Woodward, and Popoff. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Through the chair, first of all, I just want to clarify something that all Salmo residents have garbage pickup at their house. So when you speak of Salmo, it's not actually Salmo, it's actually Area G that uses the transportation in the central. It's not Salmo transfer, it's the central transfer. There's been because many people don't realize where the borders are in Salmo, so I get a lot of questions. And many times I forward them to Director Cunningham and say that he is your director, that I'm not your mayor. And they feel that why does Weimar get the garbage dump? Because that's what they call it. They don't realize that it's just a transfer station. And why isn't there one out at either Meadows, so west of town? Why isn't there one that's a transfer station out there? Because there's always people that are going to throw stuff in the bush. Doesn't matter what you do. As there is an old dump off the side of the highway out at Hidden Creek between Salmo and Weimar, which is halfway. That is highway property now. So I'm not for going for an extension. I think that this has been at the table a few times. And I think that we need to start treating everybody equally. That I understand there's always going to be people that are going to throw stuff in the dump. And if those people are still alive and are doing it still in Weimar, then maybe there needs to be more education. But why does somebody get to have it right out their door when everybody else in that area has to travel to a central station? So I am not, and it's not anything against Weimar. It is for the betterment of the whole RDCK central part, because it is a saving. It would be a saving of, what did I put down here? $42,000 just by moving that off of the books.
Okay, thank you. And I just want to make sure for clarity, I'm not viewing this, I don't take this as a strict motion to refer, in which case we'd have no discussion. This is a motion to defer the potential closure for reevaluation after a year. So that's why I was going to continue to take speakers on this. You're not in support of that idea, waiting for the year. I have Lockwood, Woodward, Papa. Sorry, Lockwood. Sorry. I have Director Woodward.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
Thank you, through the chair. I guess my wonder is, you mentioned that the cost implications of keeping it open is $40,000 on top of that. So what happens in situations if this goes through? Does that then get burdened on the total taxpayer, or how does that work?
Through the chair, those expenses would be reduced, so we would require that much less revenue, or that revenue could go into reserves.
If it stays open, then.
The budget, sorry, through the chair, the budget includes our current hours of operation. So right now, we're expecting our regular hours of operation. So any of the adjustments in here would have a cost increase or decrease compared to what we have in the draft budget. And then as Heidi pointed out, the bin wall is like continued operations there is going to need some capital investment. It's a very small site with limited service. And so, you know, as an example, with the Marblehead site that we're about to repair, I think we're estimating around $200,000 to repair that. So that 42,000 a year is not using capital investment for long-term operations. So that's another consideration.
Thank you very much.
Director Popoff.
Yeah, thank you. Through the chair, just been listening to the conversation with all due respect to Director Lockwood. I take your comments seriously on that. But just to let you know, I think we're all aware that we had a presentation from a society about people dumping garbage on Crown land throughout the area. And I have funded some collection activities on that. That is one of my concerns. And with all due respect to why not Meadows, treat everybody equal. The density of population in Weimar is far greater than any rural area surrounding Selma from what my review or my, thoughts are on that. I could be wrong. And maybe Director Lockwood can challenge me on that. But the density of population is there. By removing that one from there and closing it down, the chances of people going out and dumping it in the bush or whatever, and then we as directors, mostly on Crown land, will be responsible for cleanup, or we have been responsible in the past. We had a presentation from society to that effect, and they're asking for funding to be able to do that. So in this case, it's not to leave it open forever. It's defer it for a year, get some more stats on it, and see what's going to happen. So I would support this, recommendation made by Director Cunningham.
So I have no other speakers for the first time, nobody online. Director Cunningham, the second time, Director Lockwood, the second time then.
And because of the population, Farmer Service is larger because it goes out the old road, what we call the old road. And that'll become cheaper to go to Nelson, which is the same thing happens with school buses. The other thing is, I looked at the number of dollars, and for being open 3 hours a week, that is an awful huge amount of dollars. And I was just wondering if we could perhaps review those costs in that area. Because when I divide, do the math, I think the dollars seem somewhat excessive. Perhaps other parts are thought into the way the dollars were constructed, but I was really question that as well.
Do you have that, or Heidi?
Well, sorry, through the chair, Heidi might have some more information, but we're open 6 hours a week now, and that would include staffing, snow removal, other site maintenance, the hauling, and the satellite, so our waste bin hauling internally, as well as the GFL contract for the satellite hauling that we have to pay for.
Only 6 hours a week in one. It used to be 2 hours a week, 2 years ago, and now we're up to 6.
Sorry, through the chair, is it 6 hours, or is it the shift is 6 hours? I can't recall if that included the open and close time.
The shift is 6 hours.
Oh, interesting. I'd like to know how.
Director Lockwood.
Thank you. Supplementary.
Sorry, before we go there,
Yeah.
can I add one thing? The cost does not include the asset management component. That would be extra and over and above.
Go ahead.
So I would just like, yes, I acknowledge that you have a larger population right there. This is a great opportunity for a group that wants to have garbage pickup by GFL, that they will do just like they do in Salmo, come in and pick up the garbage and take it away, and so you don't have to worry about, because now they're getting it taken right from their doorstep, that they don't even have to go to the dump, or to the transfer station. So, that is another thing that we have people that live not in Salmo, but Area G right around Salmo, that because of our garbage pickup, that they have contracts with them, and they get paid the same as what Salmo pays, and they get picked up right at their door on Wednesday. So it is an opportunity that we shifted off of a bigger thing, because thank you for bringing up the asset management. This is the peanuts of the operation. This is not the asset management. This is not maintenance in there. It's not anything. And as we keep punting this down the road, we see that this budget is massive. And how are we going to get a handle on it? As Director Cunningham said, it was open for 2 hours, now it's open for 6 hours because people expect more. Well, let's give them more and let's offer them to get it picked up right at their door. DFL.
Okay, thanks. Director Kaisley for the first time. Go ahead, please.
Through the chair, just speaking against this motion is, we made these hard decisions in West Waste by closing sites, and I totally agree with Director Cunningham on garbage going into the backwoods, where, you know, the closing of the landfill and the cusp and going to a transfer station is going to show that for us up here. But these are all out of controls of this local government. It comes from rules that are coming from the province, that they keep downloading more and more rules onto us and making this very hard to be cost effective. And the fact that Central always brings up the fact that they're paying more and wondering why, when we have conversations when it comes to Odishenia and why West Waste is in the position it's in. So I think you have to ask yourself, yes, the nice is this, but reality is this. And I think the directors need to ask themselves that, do you want to keep paying?
Further discussion on the recommendation to leave this for another year, pop off for the second time, go, okay, no, I'm sorry, Watson. Yes, he's right there.
Okay, no problem.
Wait till tomorrow when I have a
Yeah,
question.
no, we don't work like that. It's all good. I just wanted to confirm with staff if I'm doing my math right. So we have 312 hours at this station, which is both garbage and recycling. S187 at 27,436, A117, which is recycling, at 14,706. I'm just making sure I know what those numbers mean. Okay, thanks. So it's $135 an hour to just service this facility. That's not asset management. So I did the math just to figure out what is it an hour.
That's the point, that's why I figured that's what we have.
Sorry, Director
Through the
Cunningham.
chair.
Speaking.
I think that's to staff.
So I should have done that when I originally read this report, to see what are we costing at each site by hour, because it's a good comparison as well. You don't need to do that, but that's just, I wanted to know, $135 an hour. I would say asset management on top of that is a good $100, just knowing what asset management is. Comment, not a question. Thank you.
Director Pop, oh, nope. For the first time, please, go ahead.
I had a couple of questions, but, thank you through the chair. I had a couple of questions, but some of them were answered, through previous speakers. I'd actually like to have us back it up and have a discussion about the report overall before picking out and see what we know what the goal is, but to have that fulsome discussion about the goal of this, which is, to be in line with what's the actual usage is. There are always going to be side issues to each and every one of the areas that are outlined here. But to have that discussion, as it was mentioned, the budgets for all of the waste services are high, and we will come to a point, perhaps on Friday, when we're going to be looking for those nickels and dimes. And here we're including dollars that we could be saving
and then somebody else is going to have to give up something, where there could be clear value. So I'm hesitant to pull one out right out the gate and make that firm decision on it. So it's more of a comment than a question, but that's my view.
Yeah, thank you.
Amy has something to add. Okay,
Yes, thank
this
you.
is our process though.
Yeah.
Speaker may move a recommendation.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And just to sort of follow what you were speaking about, so the resource recovery plan directed us to look at our services. The systems efficiency review identified we have a higher level of service than other regional districts with more frequent hours, more frequent, more density of service locations. And the tables 3 and 4 in the report detail that in what the current versus proposed and the comparison again against the other regional districts, so the average of other regional districts. And even with these changes that we're proposing, we still end up being on one of the higher level of services in comparable regional districts. So staff doesn't have an attachment to changing the hours. We are purely demonstrating the data of what is coming to our sites, who's using our sites, and what the distance to other locations are, and try to present what we felt the data demonstrated as reasonable consideration. So just a little bit of history lesson on why we're here.
And I appreciate the comments directed to you because I thought similarly, this would have been nice to have sort of as a sub-regional conversation in terms of net benefit to each of us, because this is a lot of recommendations, a committee of 20 to then put to a board of 20. It's quite a bit to digest. But the process is a member of the committee may move a recommendation and one has. So that recommendation, and Emma, can I ask you to read back what you captured? May not be as the recommendation from Director Cunningham.
For Weimer?
Yes.
Well, I was waiting to clarify whether he was making a new recommendation or if it was being removed and the direction to staff was to postpone for a year. But I do have a written recommendation if you want to read out what I had.
Yes, sure.
Would the board direct staff to defer the planning of the permanent closure of Weimer Transport Station and satellite recycling depot for a 1-year period?
Yeah, I think.
Does that sound like we're going to close it in 1 year, or we're going to defer the decision? It kind of sounded like we were going to close it in a year, but we're deferring the decisions.
I think that's the intention is.
And that is the intent? Okay, so I think you just have to, can you read that again? This decision fit in there nicely? Let's just wait till we all know, because there's been a lot of interest. It's better to sometimes take the time to save the time, so we will wait.
Okay.
Alternately, Director, you can type it into chat, the exact words you want us to vote on, or we will. Go ahead, Emma.
That the board directs staff to defer the decision on the permanent closure of Weimer Transport Station satellite recycling depot for a 1-year period.
Okay, is that acceptable, Director?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear this.
One more time, please.
Can I just ask for a clarification? Do you want it to put until a certain date in there? Or because a 1-year period, that's too vague. Do you want it to stay until April 2027? Before
It's this Director's motion.
No.
I think it's probably adequate.
Actually, it shouldn't be April 2027 because ideally you make the decision prior to your budget completion. Right, so it should be at the latest 1 year from now, ideally maybe a month or two earlier than that.
But December 2026?
Until the 1927 budget cycle.
Until December 2026.
Sure, sounds good.
So the option's always there to type the words into chat, so staff don't have to fish for the words. However, is everybody clear on what we're going to vote on shortly? Further questions?
I am on the speaker list.
Yeah, Popoff is, so, further, Director Hewitt and Popoff.
If I may, it's just the voting, is it, because it's in committee, everybody votes?
Yes.
Okay,
Unfortunately, yes. Yeah.
okay.
That's where a sub-regional conversation would have been handled a little bit differently. Okay, so Popoff second, and McFadden for the first time, please, on this item. on this
Casely as well.
recommendation. And, Casely is again, Casely be the second time. Director McFadden.
Yeah, I'll try to make it really quick, maybe thank you, Chair. I know this doesn't impact my residents, but I just have two thoughts. One is, I'm not sure what's gonna be different in a year from now. So the deferral, like you're kind of making a decision, you have all the information, and now we're like almost wasting people's time and staff's time by saying, now we're gonna have the whole conversation again in a year. So we have to make a decision one way or another. That would be my perspective on it. Second perspective is, I do sit around this table and I hear us always saying two separate things. One is cut costs, we're spending too much, we're doing all of this, and we want our residents to have a Cadillac service for absolutely everything. And they just don't match. And at some point, we've got to make hard decisions on where is that line, where people are tight on their money, which means we have to make hard calls that alleviate some of that pressure. And these are not tiny amounts of money, and so any of that can help. So that would just be the outsider looking in. If we can't have both. You can't cut money and also have services for really smaller populations, even though it's important to them.
Okay, we have for the second time Popoff and Casely.
Thank you, Chair. And this is on process. Now, whatever we do with this recommendation, will it still be on the board agenda? Because it is a decision that does not involve, as mentioned, West Resource Recovery. Will it be, participants only vote at the board table? Central?
It's a recommendation, go to the board, and the board will see it tomorrow.
And the board will see whether we pass it or we don't?
Yeah.
No,
Okay.
no, if it's defeated, we will either come up with something else or have no action on that. If it's defeated, we will continue this conversation till 5 o'clock. If need be, or at the discretion of the committee, we'll come to decisions more quickly. But we need to get to that vote, I guess is what I'm saying.
Yeah, and that will be at the board table.
Be a vote here in a few minutes. If it's defeated here, then we need to look at something else or move to one of the other recommendations.
And it would not go to the board.
Does not go to the board, it's defeated here.
So in other words, the committee is making a decision on another area.
Yes, we are.
At the committee level, not at the board level.
You are
Okay,
correct.
Thank you.
You are correct. Dr. Casely for the second time, and then Cunningham to close.
Supplemental through the chair is that to staff is, if this bin wall collapses or is deemed unsafe over this year, what would the obligation of staff to be to fix it, or would they be able to close it at that point?
We're debating a motion on Weimer. The bin wall is a different site, so could you hold that question?
Sorry.
Oh, this is the Weimer bin wall,
No, sorry. It's in the report. The Weimar bin wall is a similar vintage as Marblehead, which collapsed. I believe that's the question that the director is asking. So what happens if the same happens to the Weimar bin wall? What would be the staff action? Is that correct, director?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's correct, Uli. Thank you.
And the answer would be?
I would think we come to committee and ask the next steps. We need an authorization for a capital project outside of the budget plan anyhow, unless it happens exactly like now at budget time. So there would be a process for authorization to renew or close the site.
Further, Director Casely?
Yeah, so just to clarify that if there was a hazard there or the wall collapsed, the site would be closed and then it would have to come back as long as there isn't in the budget for repair of that wall. Is that correct, Uli?
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Director Cunningham?
Yeah, thanks. You notice that I didn't say anything about the number of hours of operation that And, saving money can be done in many ways. The thing is, of course, I think taking the service away entirely from the people, is a difficulty, and I can see more than one difficulty. And we did not talk about things, as I say, reducing the hours to its original 2 hours per week. But now we're up at 6. We were 2 to 3 and now 6. But if we went back to 2 hours a week, the cost would, accordingly go down as well. But we have not discussed that yet, and I've intentionally, that's why I made my resolution that we don't act at this time on that resolution, which is to close. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no more speakers to this recommendation, we'll call the question. All in favor of wording which Emma gave us to defer the decision on closure till December 2026, all in favor? One. Everybody will have to show a hand here. I'm gonna get added 2. Okay, all opposed. So we are many of 20, that is defeated.
Chair? Oh, sorry.
Well, I was gonna suggest, there's a number of recommendations, and perhaps instead of the what if, maybe coulda, woulda, shoulda, if there is another approach to that particular site, maybe the director or even staff, whoever can craft a resolution, put it in chat, and we can move on to some of the others. I would like to take the liberty to, so on privilege, go ahead.
Can they be moved as a block?
I would call for division. So
Of each
will that
one
be
individually?
faster?
Okay, thank
I
you.
would suggest if you want people who think they have a decision to make, hard or easy to do that. And we might find the remainder moves as a block. Yeah, but it's up to you. Director, move them as a block if you wish.
Well, I would like to move them as a block.
All of them,
All 8.
all
As I
7.
support,
You're moving 7 as
all
a block.
7, sorry, yeah.
As worded
As
by
I
staff.
support all of this.
Do we have a second as a block? Second. Okay, so I call for division of the first and second. So the first 2 are removed from the block. So we would have a discussion on the block, the remaining recommendations, 3, 4, 5. I'm sure I got what I had, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So those 5 recommendations are on the floor. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor of those 5 recommendations? Opposed? And we're not recording opposed for this meeting. Okay, I wanted to ask separate questions on 1 and 2. On the first recommendation, closure of Riendell Satellite Recycling Depot, those are staggering costs now. I just needed clarification, because the staff, that little small community has an independent waste or refuse service. We label it as they spend their own money out of their own pockets in a very small defined area to supplement waste collection and hauling, including staff time, infrastructure, over and above East Resource Recovery. They've done this for a long time, being a little old-fashioned company town with postage stamp lots. If we shut down the recycling side, will that have a negative impact or escalate the costs of the refuse collection, which those people have voluntarily been paying $7, then $10, and $15 or $17,000 a year for? Will that have a direct staff and cost implication?
Likely, yes, through the chair, because you likely want some supervision on this, unless it's done through volunteers. You have currently a bag tag system there. You could choose to do it all on an honor basis and not have somebody there, but currently, other than the opening of the site and closing of the site, I think to a total of a half an hour, the rest of the staff time on site is currently paid through the East Resource Recovery Service. So if the community chooses to continue to have supervision of that, they would now have to pay these additional hours. And I agree with the chair that the East Resource Recovery Service has that financial benefit that the materials are actually paid for by the service, a separate service that is unique to the rest of the region. So they pay for this specific region an old standing service for the waste disposal that otherwise would have to be paid by the residents going to a transfer station, or yeah, I guess that's what it replaces. The service itself, take that back, may not benefit financially because otherwise the residents individually would have to drive to Crawford Bay, pay for the transport and the disposal that way. So the residents pay one way or another, but it is a unique situation right now, that mutually beneficial between the recycling and the waste program.
If I may add to that, so the previous arrangement was there was a staff that's with Parks or Utilities that would open the bins and close the bins, but they didn't stay on site and supervise. So with our recycling staff there, they no longer do any of that. We open and close the bins for them. I don't think we do a ton of supervision because it's not our waste service, but they are there. So the requirement would be that the commission would have to have that park staff or utility staff open and close the bins.
And that's already paid through, so there's a half an hour per day for the attendant to do this. So that half an hour a day goes already to the utilities.
Okay, so
Waste service.
Quoted at the.
yeah, there's a lot of detail and it's not an independent operation. The only request I have here is not to discount the potential savings, but we refer this recommendation one only to the February joint resource recovery so we can sort out the impact on the other service. So we will still look at the cost savings prior to budget approval. So I move referral of recommendation one to February joint resource. If I can get a second. Second. So on referral of recommendation one to February, all in favor? Any opposed? So thank you, we refer that. The second one, I had questioned the math maybe on it, the best way to put it. If you drive from Crawford Bay to the transfer station at Preston, you exceed 80 kilometers. You can't be within 40 kilometers of one or the other. If you look at the 30 minutes, there's no way to get to either from the main strip in Boswell in 30 minutes. The highway posted speed is 60 and there's a lot of slow corners. So I don't understand on these charts on page the attachment report, I guess it is, attachment A, why Boswell would be evaluated for efficiency between 10 to 20 traffic movements per hour as opposed to 5, which is seemingly the more appropriate threshold based on how far it is to time and or distance wise to another site. Just wondering how that 10 was selected instead of the 5.
Heidi, you're able to jump in on that?
Yeah, I can speak to that. You're right, Boswell was right on the cusp. I used Google Maps, times and distances for these. And so I think Boswell came in at 29 minutes driving from Boswell to Crawford Bay. Even if we move that threshold from 10 down to the 6, the recommendation for that site would stay the same. And so regardless of which part that we put that in, I think our recommendation would be the same either way.
We're not going to close either facility. We're not going to reduce our asset base and future maintenance or asset management costs. We would disrupt the smooth pattern between, and it's not just Boswell. People who use the Boswell transfer station don't live on Heifer Road. They live widespread. I would not see the benefit of increasing hours at one site, decreasing the day at the other site, disrupting the patterns of flow, when the speed limits and time are highly challenging to make that 29, 30, 35, whatever minutes, that we would not act on recommendation 2. No action at this time. That'd be my recommendation. Which is, I guess, I can look to staff for your comments or just look for a second.
The only comment I would have is that we need to standardize our approach, and Heidi used Google as the tool to determine that. Heidi and I actually had specifically on this item even a little bit of a discussion. Heidi's point, the important point was that it doesn't really matter, even if we use the other metric, it still would end up with the same recommendation. But it's tricky. Any of these recommendations are difficult ones, and there's always the one or the other region affected, negatively affected, because we're saving money on the backs of a specific service element that we are currently providing and that people are used to for a very long time. And from staff side, sure, if you tell us stop doing these evaluations, we gladly do. It's Heidi put a lot of time into this in order to come up with a matrix to evaluate all of our sites in regards to opening hours, traffic flow, waste volumes, and travel distances. I totally get it. This is not a pleasant decision making for any of you. But there's probably arguments for each of these sites to stay open at the same time. But that's a difficult decision you will have to make.
I just want to focus on these sites. I don't want to criticize staffs doing this exercise. We asked for it, so I'm not criticizing the exercise. I'm questioning whether, say, Google Earth is an accurate metric as somebody who drives that road. I've driven that road, I forget. I've lived in that spot for thousands and thousands of days and driven it every day or every second day. So I challenge the times. I'm not going to move anything on this item. I see there's another speaker. I'm going to let them speak and then we'll move on. Go ahead, Director Wood.
Sure. I just, listening to this discussion, I'm a little bit, I have to say, I'm a little bit confused because I've heard at this table about this kind of regional approach that we apply the same metric to the region. But now I feel like we're kind of like picking out pieces and adjusting now, right before the vote. So I'm still a little bit confused as to what this table, are we trying to do a regional approach? Are we trying to do individual one-offs, adjustments on one-offs? It looks a little confusing. I'm just not sure what's exactly happening.
If the question is to me, regional, you've heard me speak to that many times. I cannot drive most days from my house, which is 2 kilometers north of the Boswell site, to the Crocker Bay transfer station in 29 minutes. I know I cannot. I know Boswell doesn't collect from my house north. It collects from far further south. You would have to go 15 kilometers south of my house before you got within 40 kilometers of Preston. I know that because I live there. So the question is, are we relying on Google Earth data to set that parameter, or is there perhaps an error? But I do want the region to succeed and to be cost effective and to stand in front of the 250 to 300 people in Creston during our budget review, as we've had the last 2 years, and tell them why we made a decision. Okay. So staff, you feel the evaluation of the time from distance is accurate?
No, I'm saying we used a consistent approach, a consistent tool that is accurate. Like I said, Heidi and I had exactly that discussion. I can't argue with Google being the tool that we have chosen to determine that. And there's probably other regions where Google tells us we are faster than we are in reality, particularly in the winter. So yes, there's definitely some inaccuracies to the real world when you use a tool like Google. I totally admit
We're
that.
going down a rabbit hole. My fault perhaps, because the question we have is key. I'm going to move recommendation 2 as staff recommended. You have a second. Further discussion, Heidi, please.
No, I just wanted to say, like, we could move that site into the next, I think the 6 to 20, the one with the threshold of 6 to 20. And it wouldn't change our recommendation to reduce the hours of operation at that site either way, because there's capacity within the hours of operation on the Saturdays to absorb all of that traffic into one day.
So I've moved the recommendation, and I have a second. Further discussion on recommendation 2. I would prefer to have seen this at sub-regional level, because this is a long conversation for decisions which are impactful. Hearing no further discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? That's carried, goes to board tomorrow.
Chair, I just wanted, so Director Cunningham's asked for another motion, which you would have to first request reconsideration to move this motion.
Would I have to request reconsideration of the different motion?
But this would counter the motion already approved, so it would be reconsideration.
Fair enough. Yeah. I don't.
So you're requesting reconsideration of recommendation 6, I presume? So is that a 2/3 vote?
Reconsideration of the 2/3.
2/3 vote.
So point of process on this one, if that's the case, we don't know what we're reconsidering because we don't know what's coming. Is that the whole idea?
Basically.
Okay, that's fine. Just want to point that out. So we don't know how to make the decision because we.
Sorry, Chair, it's difficult because Director Cunningham, he couldn't put the motion in chat, so you can just ask him what the motion is and then take the process over to you. I believe it would require reconsideration, but it's your call.
Well, we're gonna vote on reconsideration, having CAO, can you be helpful here, Stuart? We hear the argument for a replacement motion prior to reconsideration.
You just ask him what his motion is.
Let's ask then.
Yeah, through the chair, I guess you could.
So in the absence of any clear direction from Robert's rules and the like, I understand Director Cunningham that this, I'm not moving this, just these are your thoughts. Be resolved, staff review the budget and hours of the Weimer transfer station with the goal of reducing hours with the goal of a 50% savings. So that's what's on your mind. So, but your motion is to reconsider recommendation 604.1.
So I'm suggesting reconsideration because I think it counters what
Well,
we've
I think
already.
so, yeah. Otherwise, we're closing. So on reconsideration of recommendation 6
Through
under,
the chair, did someone who voted in favor of that motion move reconsideration?
Someone
who voted in favor of the motion has to move.
and Director Cunningham
Can't be
opposed.
someone who voted against.
He opposed. You voted against the block, so you can't move for reconsideration. Does somebody else want to?
It wasn't in the block, sorry.
It was in the block. We defeated the initial motion. We included it in the block and Director Cunningham voted in opposition to the block. Somebody gonna move reconsideration? Considerations moved, seconded. Seconded, okay, by 2/3 vote to, in favor of reconsidering that motion. I need some hands I can count and then we'll move on. One, Director Weatherhead, are you in favor of reconsideration?
I think I lost that, sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the room, online, 6 with Weatherhead. Are there full 20 of us here or are we missing? We're not missing anybody. Reconsideration fails. We'll move to item 4.2. Information, resource recovery, staffing, operations update from Amy. Nicole, please go ahead.
Thank you, and through the chair. The purpose of this report is to provide the committee with an update on the operational and service improvements achieved since the addition of the 3 field supervisor positions to resource recovery in 2024, and to outline how these changes are strengthening service delivery, staff support, and overall operational stability across the district. In 2023, staff identified growing operational pressure driven by increased regulatory requirements, expanded service demands, staffing challenges, and the geographical spread of our site. At that time, supervisory capacity was stretched across a large area, resulting in delays in issue resolution, inconsistent site support, and increased reliance on reactive problem solving. In response, the board approved 3 field supervisor positions, effective in 2024, to expand field oversight, improve staff support, and strengthen consistency across operations. Since the introduction of the expanded supervisory structure, the department has seen measurable improvements in key several core areas. Field supervisors are now able to conduct more frequent site visits, resolve issues more quickly, and engage proactively with staff. This has improved adherence to safety standards, operational procedures, and customer service expectations across many of our sites. Service interruptions and site closures have declined significantly. The table included in the report will detail these changes. In 2022, there were 48 reported site closures and service disruptions. This dropped to 27 in 2024, following the implementation of the field supervisors. In 2025, this was further reduced to 6 incidents at the time of the report. Importantly, most recent site closures were driven by external factors rather than staffing shortages, highlighting improved operational resilience. While incident reporting increased in 2023 and 2024, this reflects improved reporting practices rather than deteriorating conditions. With enhanced supervision, issues are being identified earlier and addressed before escalation. In 2025, incidents have declined by approximately 31% compared to the prior year, demonstrating the effectiveness of the proactive oversight. The expanded supervisory presence had a meaningful impact on staff experience and workplace safety. Psychological safety and WorkSafe BC compliance have improved through earlier identification of risk, faster response to concerns, and increased confidence among staff that issues will be addressed promptly. Public interaction management has strengthened through consistent reporting of bylaw infractions and verbal abuse, supporting appropriate enforcement actions when necessary. And our lead hand group is no longer relied upon solely for emergency site coverage to keep sites open, allowing them to focus on some of their other core responsibilities and improving continuity across the district. The addition of the field supervisors have significantly reduced the reactive workload pressures on the senior supervisor and operations coordinator. Day-to-day issues, investigations, training needs, and public interactions are now handled more evenly across the supervisory team. This shift has reduced both overtime and additional working hours by approximately 622 hours annually for the 2 staff members, improved work-life balance, reduced the risk of burnout, and created a more sustainable and resilient operational model. The report also highlights ongoing recruitment and retention challenges, particularly related to wage competitiveness. Comparable regional districts are paying between $4.67 to $8.15 more per hour for similar job roles, with the RDKB paying $5.85 more per hour, placing pressure on our ability to recruit and retain trained staff. To address this, targeted actions are underway, including exit interviews, retention reviews, improved onboarding and mentoring. We're looking at more predictable scheduling and core staffing groups, expanded cross-training and flexibility, and increased recognition and development opportunities for long-serving staff. Operational efficiency has also been supported through technology and training initiatives. Our continued use and expansion of Connect Team for reporting, scheduling, training, and communication. Introduction of Synthesia to support scalable, updated training content for field staff. Ongoing work with Strong Scale software to improve site-level functionality. Overall, the expanded supervisory model has delivered some clear benefits, including more consistent service delivery, fewer site closures, improved staff support and safety, reduced operational risk, greater organizational stability. Looking ahead, the department will continue refining our staffing models, strengthening training and succession planning, and aligning resources with areas of highest need to ensure safe, efficient, and reliable service across the district. Thank you.
And I think the biggest positive here is these closures and reduced use, and they're probably tied together. Of course, coming out of COVID as well. So looking around, we have, I get my back up to make sure I can see what's online here as well. Yeah, Director Schmink, Popoff. Anybody else in the room? Vandenberg.
That is Shakir.
And,
Yeah, another question.
Go ahead.
Through staff,
Yes.
and that is on the matrix that you've used for employment costs. I'm just curious, the 3 regional districts that border us, which are Kootenai, Vaudreuil, Calgary, Shuswap, and East Kootenai, are not included in that matrix. That would be my first thought. What are the neighbors paying?
Through the chair, if I understood the question correctly, we did include the regional district of Kootenai boundary The report was limited to the information that was available online. We did not do an exhaustive search by contacting other regional districts. This was solely based on job postings that were readily available.
Okay, thank you.
Director Popoff.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just make sure that I'm not lost where we were going. We're on 4.2, is that correct?
Yep, staffing operations, entire IDCK.
So we did receive the report, great report. I thank you, Amy, for the report. I see no recommendations from staff on this report. I see options available in the report. What are we doing here, Chair?
It's information.
Chair, I think the ones that you're looking at options are from the attached report that was presented in 2003, or 23. So this was purely just to report back on having these positions in place for a few years and, you know, celebrate some of our successes essentially.
It was a pretty major step to put these positions into place. There was a lot of discussion amongst the directors about should be not. And this is reporting back that we indeed achieved or overachieved on the goals that we had set as part of hiring these additional positions.
Okay, so through the chair supplemental, if I may, in the report, it says option 1 and option 2. We don't have to discuss those options. This is just for information only. Thank you. Great information, Amy. Thank you.
Dr. Vandenberg and Watson.
Great, thank you, and thank you for the report. Very interesting. Have you had a turnover on your supervisory positions?
Yeah, through the chair.
Okay, Amy.
Sorry, through the chair, we have turned over one supervisor and we have replaced that position and we're currently in the training process.
And second question, if I may?
Yes.
How would you characterize and I don't know what terminology you throw at it, I would call it like team meetings. So you have your supervisor and your local staff, you probably have daily, weekly huddles. How would you characterize that? Because that goes a long ways into retention in an organization.
Through the chair, I feel there's further appetite to do more training for our field staff. Currently, our supervisory staff meets twice per month to discuss the operations and staffing, and that's worked really well for our culture of our group. And the field supervisors are regularly attending the sites, which has improved that morale and culture within each of the sites. But there is absolutely opportunity to bring the groups together and to do more interaction.
Well, one thing to point out is that there's a lot of sites where there's 2 people. So, or some even where there's only 1. So there's some locations such as Creston or Duchesne or Groman where you could have a collection of 5. But there's lots of sites that operate without a lead hand or without a supervisor on a regular basis. And then when they do come to visit, it's a small collection of staff. So they get to have the regular check-ins every time they're, but one thing we try and do is some staff training and staff events where we will collect everybody. And sometimes that's even sub-regional. We haven't had a full regional district collection for a couple of years actually. And some of it we've done online, but not in person. And that's one of the goals that they have for this year is to try and have more in person. It's hard with the different hours of operation at all the different sites to get everybody together at one time.
The key thing that I heard from Amy is that working it to do better, to improve the culture. I think is what I heard. So I'm pleased to hear that. Having that right culture, that group, that team meeting concept within whatever the size of the location is critical for improvement and well-being.
Thank you. Chair Watson.
Yeah, I just wanted, first of all, great report. Really good to see that these are being very productive and it was a good move. I have more of a question from a process, kind of like our lane versus not our lane question. Like when I first saw this report, I immediately go to the fact that we don't hire staff. That's not the board's job. It's we hire a steward and then the corporation hires staff. So I had to kind of think back to when did we do this and why were we involved in this? And my recollection is that because we were shifting how we were structuring management, it was more of a budget consideration than a staffing consideration. So I wanted to make that distinction because generally staffing is not our realm. The budget and how we're managing is, the service level is our realm. But this report was really great, Amy. I think it's good to see that that structure change was good, but I wouldn't anticipate that we'd be, let's say, in the weeds on these kind of conversations very much.
Sure. One element that you as directors considered, and this was identified at the time, with still as one of your priorities, was the staff well-being, right? We dealt with the significant verbal abuse that we saw on sites and the inability to address it. People felt unsafe. People had a lot of symptoms of stress. We had absences based on stress leave. And that was a major consideration in agreeing to that component of staffing. And part of that is now that Amy's bringing back what the outcomes were, and if that specific outcome benefited, or that there was an outcome that benefited that situation of stress and site-specific interactions, negative interactions.
Good work. To the other Amy, Amy
online.
Amy online. Thank you, Amy Kutnikoff.
Thank you. So another verbal report, service interruptions in rest account, entire RDCK. Amy, again, you have a interesting chart attached to that one, which I can't find. Go ahead.
Through the chair, the service interruption guide is a poster that was developed as a clear, standardized guide for site staff to follow when there's a potential for service interruption at resource recovery facilities. Its primary purpose is to ensure that service disruptions are minimized, decisions are made consistently, and staff know exactly which steps to take before a site closure is considered. The guide reinforces a core principle that site closures are a last resort and only authorized once all reasonable options have been explored. In all scenarios, staff are directed to first notify our hotline so potential for service interruption or closure can be assessed and supported in real time. The approach ensures consistent communication, timely supervisory support, and improved continuity of service for the public. At a high level, the poster organizes potential service interruption scenarios into clear categories, including material interruptions such as recycling or waste bins, technical interruptions for power outages, debit, internet failures, staffing interruptions related to illness or late arrivals, scale interruptions related to technology or mechanical failures, and counter payment system issues. For each category, the guide is going to outline the immediate actions that staff should take, when to escalate to a supervisor, what interim measure can be used to maintain service where possible, when a closure may be authorized if all of their options are exhausted. A key benefit of the guide is that it removes the ambiguity at the site level, so staff are no longer required to make judgment calls in isolation. Instead, they're supported by standardized process that encourages problem solving before service interruption. There's consistent application of operational process across all sites, provides clear escalation pathway to supervisors and management. The guide also reinforces safety and accountability by clearly outlining what staff are and are not authorized to do, protecting the employees from making unsupported decisions under pressure, while ensuring the public interactions remain professional, consistent, and safe. Overall, the guide supports reduced service interruptions and closures, faster response and resolution of operational issues, improved staff confidence in decision-making, more consistent service delivery for residents, and in combination with the increased field supervision, the tool strengthens operational resilience so that we can maintain our sites as open and functional whenever safely possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Amy. A little more from Manager Wilson as well.
Yes, thank you. We wanted to share this because there's been a variety of these situations happen, and sometimes we get feedback from staff or from the public or even directors on sort of the process that was followed. And so we wanted to make sure exactly what Amy said, that our staff know what to do, and this is a really clear guide. And one of the reasons to show presented here is so that you understand what we're doing in these situations. And an example of an item that you could provide input on is the staffing interruption. So when a landfill attendant, most things, there are sort of few options available to us, and this is without some significant infrastructure or other changes. But if the landfill attendant doesn't arrive at the site for whatever reason, we will open the bins and if there is other staff available. So the landfill attendants are unionized and they're the ones that can complete transactions. So if they don't arrive and the non-union staff is there, they can open the bins, they can screen what's going in. What we pointed out is that, you know, we will not allow repeat customers to keep coming in when there's free tipping. But the other option would be to close the site. And so that's just one thing we wanted to ensure that you were aware that that's what we are doing. We're not allowed to waive tipping fees, and this is a situation where essentially we do. And so this is one of the things that we, you know, that there's a whole reason to share that, but this is a pointed one that we wanted to make sure that you were aware that this was our practice and we're okay with that practice.
Yeah, Vandenberg and then Woodward. Go ahead, Director Vandenberg.
Thank you. Just a moment to compliment this guide as a tool for workflow. Hopefully you have many more. I suspect that this is something that you'll post for everybody to see. That being said, first column at the very bottom in red, authorized, underlined is not spelled correctly.
You're welcome.
So this is not the authorized sign. Director Woodward.
Thank you. Just to the chair, I just wanted to say that, you know, from my experience in the city, that the last few years, we've done some very targeted hiring that, and some of this kind of workflow stuff, and I've really seen it makes a huge difference in the way that things operate and unloading, work on that was in the wrong place onto the proper person. It just has made a huge, so I really congratulate staff, directors for moving so long, but I've definitely seen some very good success in the last few years.
Thanks, Watson. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you through the chair to Amy Wilson. In terms of your question, I would support that on, you know, on a day where landfill attendant couldn't be there, but someone else is and can't open, and that we're limiting how people can access the site, that you would make it available. Because it's a very limited timeline, you're limiting who can come in and out, and you're basically just ensuring services continue. So I think from that perspective, the waiving of tipping fees in those moments until it can be dealt with is acceptable. That's what I would think. Of course, you have 19 other people to ask, but I would support that. Overall waiving of tipping fees when you've got, you know, the illegal dumping stuff coming in, no, that's a whole other process.
And then just to add that through the chair, we, it is limited. So we would have staff there as immediately as we can get them there to maintain regular operations. And just to clarify too, we do weigh in commercial traffic that have accounts, and we still apply and this is something we've done and work with the haulers and whatnot. And so often what we'll do, especially if the scale is not accessible, we do a coverage of their regular hauling, and they've found that acceptable. So the bigger loads, municipal loads, waste management, GFL, those kinds of things, we are still recouping the tipping fees on that.
Okay, that was for information. We will go to 4.4, verbal. You good? Sorry? Yeah, verbal report for Mooley, with an attachment that is just an invoice. That's a month old. Go ahead, Rudy.
Yeah, almost a year. So background is in the East Sub-region, septic is like in the Central Sub-region, part of the waste services. Septic management is currently provided through the town of Creston. They have lagoons at their wastewater treatment plant that accept septic materials. It was identified several years ago by the town of Creston that they would like to close these lagoons and replace it with a proper facility. We have undertaken that and have a joint understanding for a few years that we are having a receiving facility, and then from there, material is in a controlled way injected into the wastewater treatment plant. The engineering started late in 23 on this. By late 24, it was clear that the approach that the consultant had taken came back with unfavorable cost results. They did not just the design of that septic receiving station, but as well other upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant. So jointly, we had the discussion with the town of Crystal staff that they need to go back to the drawing board and find a way to bring this cost significantly down. This invoicing is to the end of 2024 for the design of what they had done relating to the septic receiving station. But like I said, they were directed to go back to the drawing board and find ways to have this facility, to bring the cost of this facility significantly down. Because we did not have formal agreements in place between the town of Creston and the regional district to deliver these services, but they were managed through the town of Creston staff. We bring this here for your information and for a resolution to pay that invoice associated with that engineer.
Oh, may I add to that?
Go ahead.
This project as well was awarded the Growing Communities Fund grant monies, and that's largely, I think it's almost entirely funds this invoice.
Yeah. Good point. We have a recommendation to approve payment of this invoice, $116,059. Moved, seconded, discussion.
Yeah.
Oh, please go ahead.
So did I hear you correctly saying that this is a request of the town of Creston to provide some service along the lines of engineering, and there was no agreement? Did I hear that correctly? So it's an open-ended, you bill as you need?
Not an open-ended, and it's a very difficult conversation because how we go forward with the delivery of the service without a regional district service specific to septic being in place.
Okay.
That can't be established without a formal public assent process. But, and the question is, the benefiting group from the septic services is almost entirely the rural area. There's a very small section within the town that has septic facilities that benefit from it, but it's almost entirely a rural benefiting service. So the difficulty is to come to an agreement and make the benefiting group pay while the resource recovery service is paid by all residents in the eastern sub-region. So there's discussions ongoing what that agreement should look like, who owns the facility, who operates the facility, how is this going to be paid? Is it possible to be paid through disposal fees only? What do the disposal fees look like? So there's a whole host of complexities as part of that agreement that we are trying to address and have not been able to complete.
Right, supplemental, it's a year old. And so going forward, we wouldn't want this to repeat. It's awkward. And that's why I wanted to clarify that. And so
if I may, the reason why this is a year old is that we meanwhile tried to obtain the appropriate supporting information from the town of Creston staff in order to feel comfortable signing off on that invoice. So that supporting documentation, gathering, discussing, and whatever is part of the delay in bringing that to you.
Thank you.
Director Schmidt.
Thank you, Chair and staff. Would your contract also include eventualities if it doesn't work?
Sorry, if it doesn't work?
Yeah. And this is based upon experience that I know that we've had in the central area where we paid for something, it didn't work, and they said, well, you can't come here anymore, goodbye.
So there's essentially two elements. The treatment plant is obviously entirely the town of Creston's responsibility and ability to manage. Septic receiving station, there is not many elements that can not work. And that is in part the discussion we had. Initially, this was a customized engineering solution where we said we should not reinvent the wheel, but there is off-the-shelf solutions for a lot of the equipment that goes into a facility like that. And this is the approach you should be taking. So it is equipment that is tried and tested in other facilities. So I have a fairly high degree of confidence that the equipment, the guts of that receiving station is something that has been used all over Western Canada and maybe beyond that before. Otherwise, there's not much that can go wrong. And there's obviously some form of warranty that would have to come with the equipment that's being installed.
Further discussion? Nobody online? Being none, all in favor, oh, sorry, chat, was that you?
I think it was a hand.
He said, all in
Okay,
favor.
so, yeah, I saw another, so, all in favor of the recommendation to payment, any opposed? That is carried, goes to board tomorrow. Is this a good time to stand up for a few minutes? I have 9 minutes to the hour, come back at the top of the hour. We will take a break.
And because we're on break, this is my alternate, Aidan McKellar. He's a counselor, he's our newest counselor. There's one person in the room that knows him very well, and that's Maria. But, he's gonna be here either online or here tomorrow for me, so.
I did.
Okay, we are at time, we're gonna reconvene at 3:02 local time. We're gonna move to item 5, which is the 2026-2030 draft financial plans. And I didn't grab my copy, but we have S26, A116, A119, et cetera. There are numerous. So we'll just let Manager Wilson go through the changes in each one in order. If you have any questions about the changes and clarifications, we'll go from there. This one's not.
Oh, that's okay.
That one's not mine.
Oh, sorry.
Manager Wilson.
Yes, thank you.
Please
Emma,
go
do
ahead.
you mind pulling the agenda up on the screen and just kind of trying to follow along with me if you're able? That'd be great. Okay, so sorry if I missed Chair Jackman pointed out the intended process I was going to follow is just go over all of the changed items since we discussed these sub-regionally at the end of 2025. And rather than go through everything, the things we've already discussed, I won't go over again. Of course, at the end, or throughout it, I'm willing to take questions about other things if you need clarity, but I'm just going to breeze through them to the items. So the stuff that's highlighted in green is what has changed. Starting with this 186, the easterly service. And for all of the services, I updated the projected year ends for 2025 with the actuals to end of November, whereas previously I'd only had it to the end of September. So those were updated. It actually shows a slightly lower project. Oh, and then one other thing I wanted to point out. So the columns we have here. So previously we had the 25 budget, the 25 projected year end, and this is through all the 8 services we'll discuss. We still have a column for what 2026 was in our 2025 financial plan. I left the column of what the values were that we discussed at the end of 2025, and then have the updated, this is the newest one for 2026, and some of the 27 through 30 may have changed, but that's just too many columns to have all of those. So for the most part, they follow suit with the values for 26. So just to explain why there's all the different versions of the 26 budget, is just so you can see what has changed from the various times that this has come to you. So again, the sales and service or tipping fees were updated. Projected to the end of the year with the end of November. So the value actually went down a little bit in East, and that's a minor adjustment. So the 8% tax increase stayed, and the tipping fee increases that have already been instated stayed the same. So moving along. On line 34, the prior year surplus for 26 changed because of the difference projected year end value. So that's just how that landed. Moving fairly far down, I can find the next green one. We're on line 170 in grants. So all 3 waste services, we included some funding for the illegal dumping cleanup projects. At least I think is 5,000. I believe we had different values, slightly higher values in the other subregions. Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, it's easier to go as.
thank you. Were you directed to do so on that? Like I remember the presentation, but I don't remember the conversation on directing at our sub.
Through the chair, correct. So this is I can remove that if you did not want to see it in there.
Okay. I will reserve that until we're finished. Yes, thank you.
So, Chair, just a question, if I may, on process here. Like, when I look at this, the items that are highlighted in green are the ones that are the changes.
Since December.
So that everybody's got that straight.
And that line 170 actually has 5,000 in the 26 budget presented at 25 in December. It wasn't there. That's an error. So So the contributions to reserves on 173 have changed. They went down in 26. The values in the later years, I think, are relatively, they haven't changed drastically. And again, you would have that agenda, but budget in the agenda from the December if you want to cross-reference the years from 27 through 30. Contribution to reserve on line 175 is adding in funds for the septage reserve, which is new to this service. And the intention of that is that we have funds, the tipping fee increase, the incremental $20. I think we went from, we're at 90 now, I believe, so that incremental difference of the last increase. So we started this in mid 23, and so the incremental difference of that tipping fee increase is entirely getting transferred over to the septage reserve to help fund the project. So this reserve is essentially funded by the septage tipping fees. And then line 176 for 26, that 86,000 change because it's based, we transfer half of every year's surplus into that stabilization reserve. So that's based on the change on that prior year surplus. Moving into the transfer to other services, I apologize. This one, I checked all the other services and this didn't happen. So you'll see in the column that states 2026 budget presented in 25 are the same as the values in the, for some of these in the updated ones. So I'll just go through these quickly. So on line 179, the 395,000 was 391,000. So that went up by about 4,000. The transfer to the organics on line 181 is 465,000. It was previously 487,000, so that went down by almost 20,000. On line 183, the transfer to asset management was 20,000 previously, so that one actually is correct. And on 184, the transfer to the resource recovery A102 service is at 283 here, and it was previously 299, so it went down.
Question.
Sure.
On 181 and 184, cost to organics running that program is $750,000. What's our revenue to offset that?
On 181?
Yeah, well, you've got 181, yes, line 181 and 184.
184 is the service that is overarching over the entire district. So that doesn't, so that one is essentially it's the office technical staff and it's any district-wide projects, it's the field supervisors. 181 is specifically for the compost service, and that we'll talk about with the A119 service in a moment. And then moving down there were updates to the A100 service, which is the environmental services administrative service. So that one says 67,000 here, and it was previously 66,000. One thing I'll point out with the A102 and A100 services, those change year to year. There's a calculation we develop where we look at the operating expenses for each of these services, develop a percentage for all of these 8 resource recovery services, and then that is split according to the operating budget, which is reflective of the amount of work that Uli and his group and myself and my group spend on all of these services. And then don't believe we've had any further changes in the East West service. Any questions before I move on to the second?
Yes, 186. So what is the taxation change between last year and the 2026? Up or down?
I think it stayed static.
8% with percentage check.
I got 8.6%, is that correct?
It was 8. I have to state that, finance made some adjustments to the requisition value to reflect some of the changes in general admin and, more so asset management. So it might not be precisely 8% any longer, but that's what it was. And I'll just double check what we said.
And then generally, how would you characterize that increase? What did it predominantly do for us in terms of the service? Separate pits and the. What drove up that? Loss.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, so it was projected to be a 7% increase in last year's financial plan. So it has increased this year by 1% over last year.
And that's not because of reserves, that's
No,
expense costs?
No, I mean, a lot of the cost drivers, well, there's inflation obviously is a part of that. The other one is
Landfill contract?
the landfill contract was a very substantial increase for us this year.
Landfill contract. Thank you.
Okay, I'll move on to the recycling service A116. So we haven't made any adjustments to the incentives. So on line 14, you can see the change from, that's the transfer from the e-service. So that went up by 4,000, which these are directly the opposite of what we just looked through in the transfer to services out of the waste service. And for most part, the allocation services did not have much change other than, so the A102 transfer on line 69 was 85,000 and went down to 80,000. And again, that was because when we looked at this previously, it was using last year's amounts and it was updated with the new budget for A102 with the expected operating costs. And then similarly, the environmental services on line 75, that went up from 7,700 to 8,400.
Well, my question around organics was, we're into it for $700,000 for organic program. What are the revenues that offset it? You said it was gonna be in the A. In this one here, where are those numbers here that offset that?
What's next?
That's the next one?
Yes, correct. This one, the A116 is recycling, so A119 we'll move to now, and that is the organics. So the organics program will be seeing some changes in 26. We take on operations internally around, I think it's in the month of June. The processes to go through that transition are underway. So the revenues that we are receiving are on line 1. So that is the sales and service there. And right now we are not receiving any ICI to speak of, and that's some of the work that we're undergoing with the regulation that the media release just came out about, and some of the other funding. We expect that to increase the tipping fees. We tried to be conservative about that projection, as well as some of the rural collection that we'll do with some of the CBT grant funding. Again, trying to be conservative about that in the near term.
Okay. So A119 difference between last year and this year is an increase of about 29%. That's, how would you characterize that increase?
Yeah, so you'll see the value in 26 is similar to 25. You can see that we dropped down a substantial amount starting in 27, and that is largely due to the financing for the facility will expire. And the change from this year to last year, I think it's probably some of it is to do with, again, the operation contract that we still have for half of the year.
So overall to the taxpayers, the 186, 116, 117, what is the taxation increase or decrease?
So through the chair, that's back in reflected, the only service that receives taxation is S 186 of the waste services. And so that was the first.
8.5.
Okay, so, all right. Thank you. Sorry for the questions, but we'll have to get to ask them.
Yep. Okay, so I don't think I finished going through the service here. So moving along in A119. Again, I think we're way down at the bottom, and so line 76 is the adjustment to the A102 service. So this one actually went down by 2,000 from 42 to 40 since we last spoke, and the A100 service actually went from 8,200 to 8,400. And I believe that was was no change to the. So no further questions, we'll move into.
Nobody online?
Okay. So central, the central, again, this, service was updated with the tipping fees from the end of September. Previously it was the end of November. It was previously to the end of September. For the most part, the sites went up a little bit in central with the expected tipping fees.
Can I ask you a question about that? So when I look at the tipping fee increases, though, some went down, and so if the fees went up, why are the amounts going down for those sites?
Through the chair, it was because the projected year end for 25 was adjusted, and then we add those percentage increases based on 25. So sometimes some sites have a big project and some don't, and so there can be a lot of variation in the tipping fees month to month, site to site. So.
And supplemental to that, with the recent, I should know this increase that we just did in terms of increasing Caslo by whatever hours it was, do we anticipate that our fees are gonna go up because, our revenue is gonna go up because we'll have more traffic, or we'll just wait and see?
Through the chair, I don't think we expect different tipping fees essentially, because it's the same tonnage of material. We just collect it more efficiently by reducing the hours to a reasonable amount to accept that traffic level.
We're increasing the hours. In Castle.
Oh, in Castle particularly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't, looking at that as an overall change, but for Castle, again, I don't think we would see, we're right now, it's a higher traffic, so it'll just be spread out over. Okay. The line 13 has a slight modification, and to be quite honest, I can't exactly recall why. It looks like I adjusted the way that was calculated based on an average, whereas previously it's a straight number, and so just the way that we were forecasting it changed a little bit. So moving down, so line 22, that's the growing communities work. So each of areas D, E, and F dedicated 150,000, both in 25 and 26. Allocation of that funding didn't occur in 25, so the 150,000 from 25 was rolled into 2026, and we expect to have a report to committee in the next meeting or two to finalize that.
I have a question. Through the chair to my fellow Central Resource Directors that are not participating, would you like to?
You mean as a board, not as individuals?
No.
And straight through the chair, what we're looking to fund that is things like the kiosk at Central that would allow septage and organics to come more days through the week, because we only have the 1 day of operation midweek on the Wednesdays. Some of them, and then the other thing we've got confirmation on is that we can use it on all the new hauling equipment we have underway, which services all the sites throughout the sub-region. And And that was one thing, it took a little bit to get that confirmation from the funder that that was eligible. And we do have a lot of units of replacement both in 25, 26 and future years. So if there was more community works fund out there, we would not have any problem funding it and offsetting borrowing.
Nice pitch.
I'm pitching.
Yes, sorry.
Thank you for the offer, Chair. Although I want to say that when it comes to the recycling, we have such a low amount when we start looking at this, because I always say we're taking it from the same taxpayer to be able to help. So Salmo is helping, it's just in the recycling part. And we built the whole entire thing and it didn't cost the committee anything. So I just wanted to make sure that we remember that.
Moving on.
So on line 41, the transfer from reserves changed, and that's just because you'll see there's some modification to the capital works that are to be funded by 26. So that's reflective. We'll discuss those in more detail when we get into the capital reserves. Waiting to find a green one.
Yeah.
This one is very long.
This is a long.
Okay, so vehicles, so we have on line 260, we have one unit at Tacoma that we purchased from one of the other services that we use for our operations group, and that was just forming up a procedure so that we use the fuel card for that Tacoma, which I'd missed in the previous budget. Into grants, so line 304, that is the illegal dumping funding, and again, that was that's up for discussion. But that was a placeholder we added.
Amy, can you just say the line item? I can't actually see it on the computer.
304.
304, thank you.
Line 306, our contribution to reserves, so that was increased. One thing to point out, these numbers in the contributions reserves seem quite high. It's actually, the central subregion is always having low contributions, and they're definitely improving. There are a lot of accounting and auditing processes that have gone on in the last few years that Central really needs to needs to be analyzed with finance and our auditors. And we are also, when we get into the bottom, and you can see on the different reserve balances, you can see that we're utilizing these reserves quite a bit. So they're going in, but we're spending them almost like the reserves are not going up incrementally. And I think that this amount of reserves is what the service needs right now to both make sure that we have capacity when this accounting processes are confirmed, that some funds may have to go into a landfill liability closure that we don't have set up for this service yet, as well as we have a number of deficits based on contaminated sites and other things on the service. So we have to I want to make sure that we are keeping the service aware that those impacts are still coming and would likely impact these transfer to reserves once they're concluded. So
In 2026, we are drawing 1.43 million from reserves.
Yeah. I have a question in the chat here. Can the screen be changed so the view is any wider, like take away what's seen on our online, I guess. Is there any way to widen that view at all?
You can close I've already fed it to the web. You should close the chat and the participants.
Individually.
Or you can do it on with the mouse that you have.
Oh, here. Well, you want me to do something constructive?
It's just I don't have that. I don't have that mouse.
Okay.
That's the wild mouse.
I can come and
Uh,
yeah, and then click on the participants as well. I mean, that's just written here, but
No, okay, but online, what will they be seeing? It's their individual computer online.
yeah, they can remove it as well.
This is what I'm saying.
But I made it as wide as I can unless you want to lose a couple of columns.
No, probably not. Okay, that's what we do. Carry on.
Yes. And further in regards to reserves, so line 308, you'll see that that's highlighted, but there's no value in it right now. We are still calculating that reserve transfer. And so it will actually, I will be moving some funds from line 306 down to 308. So it'll be moving funds that are right now allocated to the regular reserves to the accepted reserve. It won't change the reserve account number, so it won't require a financial plan amendment, but I just wanted to make sure if you were fact checking the reserve balance transfers at the end of the year, that's what's happening, and we just don't have that number calculated at the present time, so. Okay, so moving into transfer to other services, the A102 transfer on line 313, this one went up quite a bit. From when we spoke in November. And again, that is based on that operational, the calculation that determines what portion of A102 each service has to contribute. So the A102 and A100 services both went up, but you can see on some of the services, their numbers actually, what they contributed individually went down, and that's just because the amount of work in that year changes year to year. So some of them take more of the burden because they have more work expected in that year. So it's not if A102 goes up 10%, everybody doesn't go up that same 10% year to year because there is that variation based on the workload in that particular year. So just to explain why some might have jumped and some have dropped and some have stayed static, it's based on that calculation. Asset management on line 315, and in all of the waste services previously, just as a placeholder, I plunked 20 or 40,000 based on estimations of what the facility condition assessments may cost. These are revised numbers that were provided by finance. So for most, I think all of the services, they went down. And they're higher in the first year because of these facility condition assessments, and then future years they would be maintenance, and that's assuming that we get all of those assessments done in 26. If they don't, we might see that flow into 27. On line 316, so line 316 and 317, both east and west have two transfers for the compost because they split they're co-contributors, equal contributors into that service. So one of the lines, so line 316 is based on the amount after what we calculate as the in lieu of tipping fees. So that is the tax subsidization that the service requires to balance. So that went down from 50,000 to just under 40,000, and that is the same amount, and that's split 50-50 with so that the total amount required for that tax subsidy is essentially just under 80,000, and they split evenly with the West service. Line 317 is split up differently so that it's based more on, for the central, currently it is based on the fixed operating costs and the capital costs. And so these are some of the things we were discussing in regards to the, I think it was in January when we discussed the city of Nelson. So regardless of what each subregion is contributing, they were, supported the program, and so there's fixed cost in these facilities. The West transfer that's similar to this has both the capital and fixed operating costs, but also has variable operating costs. That determination is going to change year to year as the volumes from the different subregions change. So right now we've been calculating it so that Central essentially is sending no material. There's been such a small amount coming from Groman. So once the City of Nelson's program starts and once the ICI starts, I think that this calculation will change and probably get a little bit more equal. So right now, the West pays more because they send all their material from Castlegar there, so that's why those two are different.
Director Woodward.
Do you have any idea what the population of the ICI from Nelson could be? If you had, let's say, 80%, well, obviously not for 100%, but just wondering what volume.
Through the chair, we had the ICI expected volume, so we, built the facility with the assessments of what we could expect, and I believe the ICI was fairly comparable with the municipal, but to date, we haven't had much. So those ICI programs are just launching, and the commercial hauling has just started as well. So we haven't been able to see it to date. With most of these programs, I think that you don't expect 100%, and certainly not in the first few years. It's sort of the first, you can see incremental increases in the first few years. And I think our consultants suggested, even with regulation and everything in place, you're still like 95% would be sort of the upper limit. I can't tell you what we have right now. It's negligible, really.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, was the question what we currently have or what we
No,
are?
it's like, once it's up and running, that's the
Yeah,
site.
that number was actually in the report we had the last time here when we spoke about the larger Nelson numbers. I don't know if it's in the media release, but definitely we communicated in that report.
Thank you.
And then line 318 is the transfer to the recycling A117. And that reduced a little bit, partially because we deferred the Groman Lakeside Depot project to 27. So that was some of the borrowing wasn't incurred in 26. So the general admin on line 320 had a slight increase since we spoke in November. The line 324, the A100 environmental services went up in the service, similar to what we saw with the A100 or A102, sorry. And then moving into capital, some of it, so line 333, that was just the roll up in trailer, which we have received, but it wasn't received until January. So that I just rolled that into the 26 budget. On line 341, when we discussed this so that's the Belfer fence. So when we discussed this in November, I had that as Belfer fencing. So the only change here is that we changed the descriptor to fence and surveillance, because I think we are still assessing the best use of that money to deter the actions that we're trying to deter there. And while a fence is one way, but we have a lot of concerns, one about the ongoing operations of that, and the fact that we can see this at a lot of our other sites, that fences don't keep people out that want to get in. So then we're often repairing the damage that they've done to fences to get in. And so this could be physical links to the site. It could be increased surveillance and more cameras, and may not entirely be focused on fencing. So just a descriptor change to that one.
Director Lockwood.
Thank you, and I was waiting until she went past the line, so thank you, Chair.
Oh.
I just want to go back to line 334, as we're looking at different things. The equipment trailer for the $50,000, can we have a little bit of a description? Because $50,000 for a trailer, we could move a lot of hiring. And I can say that because Salmo just had to move a loader and it cost us not quite $500 to go and get it fixed. So that's why I'm asking, do we need to actually buy a trailer? Or is it cheaper to actually get a company to come and haul something that's been broken down. Because if we have the trailer, then that means we need a truck and we need all of that other stuff.
Yes, thank you, through the chair. So the trailer that we're looking at would be one that would work with a roll-off truck, so we have the trucks. The intention is that we could move equipment, so we've got loaders, we've got a little backhoe, we have an excavator, and that we could move that equipment, and so most of that is up at the Salmo Central facility right now. That we could move that equipment. We have a lot of legacy chip piles, wood chip piles that we've talked about, and having the need to move those from a number of our, almost all the transfer stations have these stockpiles. And so that was one of the items. Another one is actually a water tank at Central to be able to move that around. So there's a number of sort of smaller items that we would use this for. We have also moved things like our like some of our bigger equipment, and some of the other subregions could use those services as well, and then that would be charged like that. There would be a transfer between services if that is offered to the other subregions. So we've hired people to haul our equipment around, and yeah, it can be between a few hundred and a few thousand depending on how far we're traveling it. It's also the arranging and scheduling and often wait times to have that happen. And so to be able to just do it when we need it and move that, especially if there's a situation, to be able to move equipment out quickly, we find that that would have a benefit. And sometimes depending on what they're doing to the contractual arrangements that we have to follow, we would just be able to do it ourselves. So we see some efficiencies with that. 50,000 is a placeholder, and we would also consider looking at used units. So that's just the upper end of what we would be looking at. So we will try and find something that's more economical.
Okay, and supplementing, because I'm looking at it, that there's a possibility that that's what we're talking about, is that we're moving equipment or so forth between 50 to 100 times to spend that. And so I'm hearing that it's more for convenience than that, to be able to do it when you want to do it. Like if you want to do it at 4 o'clock, opposed to 2 days now at 4 o'clock.
Yeah, through the chair. And I mean, trying to move a piece of equipment up to Marblehead, I think we would be on the lower or even below that range, right? And it, depending on the lifespan of a unit like that, like maybe 10 years, I don't see that would be an unreasonable expectation.
Okay, thank you.
And through the chair, that's also funded by reserves, so we're not financing that unit.
Yeah, that's still money.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, and then on line 353, you'll see a new item. That's the Marblehead bin wall. So you're probably aware that we had a failure of the bin wall at Marblehead. We've direct awarded the design work to expedite that with Brilling Hansen, who's done all of the West Transfer Station projects and was extremely cost competitive at those locations, and is very well skilled to do this. They do them all over the place. They've already been up to the site, assessed the site. We don't yet have a cost, so the 200,000 is an estimate at this time. It is reserve funded. And by early reports, it will be a full rebuild. We are asking for a cost comparison potentially. We're just assessing the operational benefit of one bin spot versus 2 bin spot. Currently, the overflow bin is just you walk the material in. So we're assessing the cost benefit, and when we come back, that we'll provide those costings so that you can determine sort of the scope of what that project will look like. Ideally, to get it is constructed in 26. Once the site dries out is probably what we're aiming for now, just because it is quite wet and probably part of the failure. It's one of our oldest bin walls. So more to come on that one.
Question from Chair Watson.
Yeah, I think you did just answer that you'll come back to us to, give us the update on what the needs are. Is it safe to assume, without getting too much into potentially who might be paying for this, that should we be able to get it covered, that would be included in what you would update us.
Correct, yes. If we have, any insurance or other possible funding, we'll include that when we return because we will come back for a request to, award the construction.
Okay, can I also ask at that time, at the direction of staff, to check in on the community work funding if there is a high expense? That I can see if there's some way to support that.
I have about 200 or 300 line items to go.
Okay, great. So, and then, one thing I will point out in the reserve section down below, again, if you see the reserve balance, where, like I mentioned, if you see the transfer from reserves on line 366, you can see that we're taking an average, we're taking $1 million out of the reserves, regular reserves, pretty much every year in the financial plan to fund all the ones that we have. So the reserves that we're putting in are needed for the service. And then we also, line 383 and on for a little bit there, we have added a fleet replacement, and that's for the Tacoma that we have stationed at Gorman that I mentioned earlier. So that's, recall if we discussed that in detail. Okay, so moving on. The recycling services, again, don't have a ton of change. So here, on line 14, we have previously, we discussed 800,000 and that's gone down to 680,000. I think I have something highlighted. Oh, on line 64, the 27 value, I did update because I was estimating that the Lakeside Depot would be closed by then, but we are likely going to be there for most of 27, if not all of it, because we'll do the design works, finish the design works in 26. And then construction won't occur till 27. So depending on when we're able to start utilizing the new location, I wanted to make sure that I continue that.
Oh, go ahead, please.
Thank you. I just want to ask, so is this the recycling land in Selmo that is rented?
Yeah, the lease.
The lease?
Yeah.
So that's $7,200. So what we're paying Lakeside 52,000.
Hence why we're going to consolidate the depot so that we don't have to.
You're welcome. Working together.
So line 80 is the change to the resource recovery A102 service again. That went from 111,000 to 140. And the line 86, the A100 environmental services went from 10,000 to almost 15,000. And I won't describe that calculation process again. You've heard me say that a couple of times already. So I think now we'll move into the West Waste Service, S188. Any questions?
See me just checking in line again and nothing to chat. Go ahead.
Great, so on line 1, you'll see that we reduced the tax increase that we discussed in December at, that was going to be a 10% increase, has been moved to an 8% increase. So that went down a couple of points. Partially to do with the fact that we are projecting higher tipping fees, so lines 4 through 10. Again, that was updated to the end of November. The Udashenia had another $500,000 soil project this year, so sometimes that kind of complicates trying to forecast because I have to remove that. So you'll see on line 5, and we're projecting 3.1 million in tipping fees, but I'm only projecting it 2.78, but we've got the increases. That's because I removed that 500,000 out of there and then applied the 6.4 increase, because we can't forecast that those projects will happen. Those are, we've had a number of them recently, and part of that is that the RDKB does not accept any soils at their landfills, so a lot of our projects have been out of district from the Roslyn, Castlegar trailers.
If we not go over the organics, or
we'll do that.
It's separate, okay, okay.
Saving the best for last. Okay, so moving on from tipping fees, the line, oh, it doesn't have a line number, I've missed that one. So between 30 and a half, I think we had a lot of these problems in one of the previous versions, so I hope that we corrected that. But because this service has a very substantial reserve balance, some of the services are now getting, well, they were getting this interest, but it just went directly into the reserves. Now they're coming in this account, so that's that was modified.
So question, it's not coming into a 2026 account, it's coming into 2027 budget? Is that
Yeah,
right?
I just
Why?
saw that. I will double check that.
Okay.
And through the chair, part of that might be because there's the which we'll see in a little bit, some of the accounting work that happened, it was dated back to 22, but we actually didn't, the services, so some of these services, east and west, had a large transfer from these funds that went out of the service through provisions before, based on our landfill closure calculations, and they redid some of the way that we did that accounting, and now that money came into the service in the prior year surplus, and so those funds are getting transferred from the big chunk that came in the prior year surplus into the landfill liability reserve that sits in this service now. And so possibly I didn't account it in 26 because it's a year of transfer, but it should have some in there. So I can relook at that.
Yeah, great, thank you.
One on line 32, that's the transfer from regular reserves for the cap projects, which we'll discuss when we get down to those capital expenses. And then again, line 45, that prior year surplus was updated because largely due to the tipping fee updates and some of the other expenses we updated since we discussed this in December. So moving along, travel. So on line 74, we had the 17,000, that was paying mileage for personal vehicles for that role. We are moving it to a fleet unit, so which was calculated and proven to be more cost effective. And so I dropped the value because we haven't procured yet. So expect that some of the year will be covered by personal travel, and then following that, it's moved to the fleet unit, which you'll see has changed some of the other accounts as we go through. Yeah.
Go ahead, please, Director Dave Goff.
You're calling on me, Chair?
Yes,
Okay,
please go
thank
ahead,
you.
Director Dave Goff.
Yeah, I had a question just on the revenue side to staff. When Amy said that we don't, we get these $500,000 soil project deposits at our landfill in Odishania. Is there a way of kind of averaging them over a period of time? Like we've got in terms of projecting for budget, like, is there a way of just averaging them like over 10 years as to what we've had or whatever to give us kind of a guesstimate as to what we may potentially expect if we're not aware of something big coming in? through the chair.
The chair, I would feel a little uncomfortable about doing that because it's impossible to predict what projects are gonna proceed in future years based on past years. So, and they've been wildly different. We have years where we got virtually none, and then there's years where we've had in the $500,000 or $1 million range, which is, I think would really skew that average. And I don't know it would be appropriate to base taxation levels on something that could wildly vary like that. So, I mean, the West can look at it as it's a bonus when you get them, and you can move that money into reserves or other things. But I think it could be very complicated to try and depend on that as a revenue.
Yeah, maybe we can see this in context of our stabilization reserve. So any overages in your revenue create a surplus that to 50% goes into your stabilization reserve. What we have done and projected out in these coming 5 years is to rate the stabilization reserve. So it isn't like you put this money and stash it away and there it accumulates and becomes a problem. We actually actively starting to use the stabilization reserve and going from currently 2.7 million down to $870,000 in the 5-year period. So whatever you accumulate, we actively starting to use this and consider it in our overall financial situation in regards to having a reserve for capital projects. That's the reason why we as staff didn't see it as a problem not forecasting revenue from these source projects.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so the next line, 149, in the repairs and maintenance, you'll see that we've added some repairs and maintenance for the new piece for the lead hand roll that I mentioned. Utilities, so this on line 168, we increased the utilities with the expectation that the unit would be a electric vehicle, and so that would be an increase in the charging costs, and the vehicles, so we have on line 169, that's actually a different account, so that's the vehicles account. I have not figured out how to add new subtotals in here. Emma's going to show me, so the next budget you'll see these accounts broken out a little differently in next year's budget. So currently we have the oh, it looks like I might have double counted that.
Yes,
so
it's a hybrid, it's electric and fuel card.
It could be, so I'll make sure to look at that, and then dependent on the type of unit we get, let's see one way or the other. Okay, contribution to reserves, so 193, that again was just was increased in from when we discussed this in December. Again, partially due to some of the increases in the tipping fees that we are expecting. And as you'll see in the reserves in the bottom, this service has a whole lot of capital expenses coming up. So whatever we can put into reserves, we'll very confident that we'll be utilizing them in well, you'll see as we get into the capital expenses. And then there's a lot of the projects when we get down there can discuss, but we have done a combination of reserve funded borrowing and so that try to keep down the borrowing repayment costs as much as possible. The line 195, that is the funds to go to a fleet reserve for that lead hand roll unit. And the line 196, that's the contribution to stabilization reserves. And like I mentioned, that half of any prior year surplus is added to stabilization reserve, and the other half gets turned in service. Line 198 is the grant for the Healthy Communities of North Slocan Valley. Got that right? So that's a New Denver Silverton composting project. I missed that they had asked for an increase in 26, and we just received their annual report. We didn't get it quite in time to put it on this agenda, so you'll see it at the next agenda. Line 199 is the wilderness or the back illegal dumping cleanup, similar to what you saw in the other subregions. Transfer to other service, so line 204, you'll see that 9,700 was added back in. It had been removed with the expectations in last year's budget when we prepared this that 26 would see equal depots in the Preston and or Castlegar and the Cusp, and that this transfer would drop off, but based on the progression of that project, it reinstated it for 26. So with the expectation that.
So Chair, I do have a question about this. On line 199, the cleanup. $10,000, is that across all three, or is it different in other? I think it was $5,000 in one.
It was 5, 10 and 10. So 10 in central, 10 in west, 5 in east. That's the numbers we have currently.
Is it, we got more wilderness?
Yeah, it's like through the chair, it's a larger area, and I expect by their proximity that they might see more projects in these areas.
But it's up for discussion, right?
No,
This is
but-
just,
yeah.
we threw that as staff in there for discussion.
Yeah, no, it's just a figure put in there. I realize that.
So, through the chair, if it's on the table, then wilderness, can we have that discussion? Just, clearly, how is that money allocated out? Does it cover all of the contribution areas? Is 25 grand in perpetuity? How do we know how it's going, how it's being measured? It'll tell me a lot in terms of how you're allocating money out. And if you just cut them a check for 25 grand to cover the area, or is it a credit every time they come to the landfills? How is that working?
Yeah, through the chair, because staff are not allowed to waive tipping fees, this would be based on actual projects and when they brought material to the site from illegal dumping, that this fund would be used to pay for those tipping fees.
And there's a small initial cost. There was a request for a truck. There's currently discussion about a very cheap truck that we might be considering sponsoring. So there's, might as well say, there's currently a truck coming out of Castle Fire that I would personally not consider if I would be them. That's how many repairs this unit is going to need, but they consider still it to be salvageable and repairable.
So we will provide them with money allocation and to some degree a vehicle in order to conduct that cleaning business. We will then track that data at the scale when they come in. So in a year's time, we can see just how the program is, what areas were benefited and how they're benefited, because this needs to be evaluated.
I would assume we have at each year end a report coming from them to us that outlines the projects that they have. We track the tonnages as a department, and that being reported on an annual basis to you and evaluated annually in regards to success.
Mm-hmm. And no problem with the program. I just want to make sure we're measuring it correctly. And we know what's happening. Because it's a brand new program that could all of a sudden just be spun out into multi-year allocations.
Through the chair, so Heidi will be preparing a report for committee to come back and discuss scope and sort of how this process will work. She had a lot of focus on this hours of operation review, and she also does all the work for our annual reporting. So she wasn't able to bring it back before budget time. But before, and then the group isn't actively doing much cleanup right now. This winter they probably could be, but the winter we didn't expect to see much. So before we start spending any of this money, we'll come back with a plan for you to approve. This was to put a placeholder in here so we didn't have to do a financial plan amendment to make that progression start in 2026. So once we have that report and we have some things ironed out, and especially if we proceed, after we have some time under our belt, I said, these are really just a placeholder, and I don't expect that we'll be giving them $25,000 every year. And it will vary on what projects they're cleaning up. The way that our scale system works is, or the illegal dumping stuff works right now is they have to pay for the tipping fees, and then they apply to a discretionary grant. What this would allow is that, and that is specific to the area where that material ended up. Who knows where that material originated from? So this is the sort of sub-region coming together and funding these cleanups, because it's hard to confirm where that material was sourced. And what we'll do is, through our system now, the intention is that we'll put it on a rest account so that they don't have to pay for it. We'll still want controls, like we'll ask them to provide information on each of these projects, photos of what they're cleaning up, information and collect data on what they're cleaning up, so that we can bring these back in reports and say, this is what was spent in the year, this is what the cleanup was done, and then make decisions on how we'll fund it year to year. This isn't a long-term commitment. I think it's a new program, and we're gonna just kind of do some more assessment and then feel it out as we go. And so I suspect that these numbers may change.
Director Paul? Yeah, so just to prevent further discussion on this or whatever, I'll make sure, and that's a good point that Director Linderberg brought up, is this is not a reimbursement program like we normally do. This is, they bring waste down, we record the waste, and we put it in our charge, and then we pay them for the roundup, etc. And you're gonna keep track of it, and by the end of the year, we'll have a better handle on it, how much each area will have to contribute to it.
That's correct. So, and right now these are run as volunteers. So it's currently, as I understand, the only request that they have other than this truck potential is to pay for the tipping fees. The similar organization in the Okanagan called the Okanagan Forest Task Force actually is previewing a film tonight on YouTube at 6 p.m. I don't know how to find it exactly, but it's on similar situations, and I think it might be an interesting community outreach.
And they have already a couple of videos on their website.
Yeah.
I had mine.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Take it away. You don't have to answer me now, but I just want to note there's multiple organizations and how we manage that. It's not just one.
Through the chair, that'll be something we'll include in this.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So that we already discussed line 204, line 205 is the A102. So that went down in the west from 484 to 409. Then we move on line 206 and 207, as I described in central. Those are the two line items for the compost service. So line 207 is that same amount that's equal to what central pays as the tax subsidy. And then line 206 is the value that the West contributes. That includes all the fixed costs, but also the variable costs, because they are actually processing materials. So that's sent in lieu of the West paying for tipping fees when it comes to the site at Central. So the compost hauling on line 208, we did a little bit more assessment and increased that from 84,000 to 96,000. Also expecting that the West volumes will increase with the ICI this year, and with the new roll-off trailer that we just received, we're hoping to see some efficiencies in hauling. So once we get that more underway and try and utilize as much as possible, we'll continue to reassess that every year. So line 209 is the transfer to the recycling service. So that went down a little bit. And the asset management, similar to the other subregions where that was an estimate when we discussed back in December. And so the new number of 15,000 is based on what was provided by finance. Line 213, the general admin was adjusted up by 2,000 from when we discussed last. The line 217, A100 went down by about 10,000. Okay, and then into the capital expenses. So you see line 220, there's a new value for the fleet to be funded by reserves for the lead hand roll. And what else do we have that we have changed? Looks like that might have been it. So again, in this service, we've got quite a lot of work upcoming. We're trying to balance the reserves and the type of reserve that we're utilizing as well. So year to year, that might change, especially the large projects. Just to revisit this quickly, we have 500,000 this year for on line 228. You'll see we have 500,000. That's for fence and septage work to make sure that we have enough capacity in the next couple of years for filling, and also to start the design works for the future cell, which we've got plunked into 2027. And that 4.4 million was the early estimates for the liner portion of the cell development, and then the 4.6 in 2028 is when we develop and start utilizing the leachate collection and treatment. Those numbers will largely vastly change once we do finish the design work in 26, and numbers could change, the timing could change, but we are in a position at Udashini where we do need to move on this because we just had a site meeting with our engineer, and we've got a couple of years to play with in a few spots, but should we have something like a major disaster or a large construction project and have the misfortune of filling in drastically higher than what we're projecting on our usual tonnages, we really don't want to paint ourselves into a corner and run out of space, because then we'll be sending it to Creston and they don't want that either.
In fact, we're already moving in on our septic area in order to make the operations work for us.
Director Popoff, still a concern regarding septic. I understand there is a septic pit being built in the Slocan area up on the mountain, and that might impact the amount of septic we get at our landfill. Now, are you aware of that, whether the, what environmental approvals they need, et cetera, and I don't know whether they are following the process or not, but this is something that, I get feedback from my residents and I know nothing about.
They are built as we understand. We haven't seen them, but we have not seen a reduction in volume, so I don't know if they are in use or not. Our concern is currently in the other direction, that we normally see from November on the septic volumes drastically dropping off. What we have seen so far is that septic volumes going on full tilt throughout the whole winter period to a point that we are really struggling, the Shania, for example, with the volumes that we are receiving. So we have not seen a reduction, not seeing anybody going anywhere else with it. Our problem is more so that we have problems handling it because septic volumes are coming in the same way as they do normally in the fall.
So just a follow up, if that septic proposal that's up on Springer Creek Road and up the mountain is, gets active, will the reduction help us or hinder us? If there is going to be a reduction in septic.
It will reduce our tipping fee, which I don't think is currently your major problem in the Western Sub-region. The problem is that we don't have facilities to properly manage it. We will assess that as we go. And that will be part of the planning horizon as we talk with the city of Castlegar and other municipalities in regards to accepting septic in the future. So right now, our problem is not that we don't have enough materials. Our problem is that we have too much.
Okay, so that just the heads up that something is happening.
We are aware of it, and
Thank you.
we are in discussion with Hollis and so on.
Okay, thank you.
I just will note, just getting some heads up from board chair as well. We have quite a few items to go through. We have, well, we will have public time in a while. We have the, another item on the tagging. So we may well end up moving the closed meeting, referring the entire closed meeting agenda to next month. Just in the interest of time, we have to have the addendum and everything published as well after two sets, well, one set's done, but the other set of minutes is reviewed.
And you have David off on the speaker.
Yeah, and so going back then to the speakers, Director David, please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I have a question on line 225. And that's the capital expenditure there of quite a few $1 million. And my question is with respect to the second scale plans. And I have a director's motion that is going to be dealt with after we finish the budgets. And the key thing is that I don't want to talk about the director's motion now, and Chair, maybe you can help me. But I'm going to say this, I'm questioning, are we doing a second scale because of the choke point issues we have right now with the first scale? And do we have the data to back it up? So I'm just questioning the need for a second scale, and it's millions of dollars. And I will deal with it in the director's motion, and that may impact, just giving everybody notice that I might be coming back with a motion that I'll send in terms of the budgets before Friday's meeting. So I'm just gonna stop there, and then I'll wait for the director's motion to be dealt with, so then I can share exactly what my concern is, because I don't want that. This isn't the place to raise it, so just giving the chair notice.
Okay, thanks. We'll continue on then with the budget line items and get to that item when we get to it.
And not to speak to the motion, but to speak to that line item, we will be bringing a report next month with the options for that project. The project itself is the tipping area relocation. So currently where the tipping area is going to be in the area that we're going to be filling in the next few years while we close out that cell, and we need to move that area. We'll also be moving it from the smaller bins that we currently have into which have to be moved by a loader, which is kind of inefficient to roll up in, so that it will match the rest of our hauling and be more efficient for hauling to the further cell location. So that more info to come on that project. I was going to follow up on this item similar to line 228 with the landfill development. So that options assessment is coming next month, and the tipping or the second scale is, I know I started off the description with that term, but the tipping area is the biggest part of that project.
Thank you.
Okay, so moving to the recycling service, A118, not much on this one. So the line 9, a slight reduction in the funding from the waste service to operate this. And then moving down to line 65, the 138,000 from A102 went down to 116, and the 12,000 was relatively unchanged for the line 71 for the environmental services beach transfer. So that's all there is to report on that service. No change. So the compost service. So the A120, this is a service that's equally combined with or funded by the central and west subregions. The tipping fees again on line 1 were updated to the end of from the end of November numbers. So we had higher than expected amounts. And that's what's reflected in the 26 budget. So that's based on expected amounts for 25. The items on line 15 through 18, I've already discussed those in the waste services. So those are to do with the tax subsidy or the transfer for tipping fees. Line 20 is the prior year surplus, so a little bit of an increase, and that surplus has a big chunk of it that's funds. It's not an operating surplus, it's funds that have been sitting in the service to do some work at the compost facility. So just to point out that that's not an operating surplus. Okay, so then moving down line 91, again, the A102 service went up by a few thousand, and so did the environmental services on line 97. So those.
Okay, I have Director David off again. Question.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, a question to staff through the chair. Any update on, like we're looking at RDKB increases and we're looking at ICI increases in materials coming. Any update on Nelson, or is there nothing new to add to what we've heard at past meetings about potentially having more material from Nelson for a compost facility?
Through the chair, no, that's been communicated to staff. The staff to staff meetings that occur, I think, monthly between us and the city suggested that it's in February that it will be going back to council for their decision. And I don't know how quickly any of those decisions would roll out. So at present, we haven't forecasted a significant change.
Thank you, Chair.
Director. Okay.
Line 100, there was the a second bucket for the biosolids that was rolled from 25 into 26 because we have not yet purchased it, and that's the only other changes. So that's the end of the budgets.
Okay.
One question I have on that is that, so we collected it, so is it that money that went into the reserve that?
We did not, for the compost bucket, we didn't pull the money out of the reserve yet. So the funds that I was talking about that's carried over in that prior year surplus are largely to finance that line 101. So we had money that we had in the service to do works on the water management at that facility, and the works haven't proceeded yet. So that's what that's. So we could put that money into reserves and take it back out this year. Is that what I did?
That's what I'm asking, is we had it in our budget last year.
Mm-hmm.
So, and because we didn't buy it,
Mm-hmm.
so, which I still wonder if we should be buying it, but, so we collected last year, we're not collecting another 12,000 this year. But how do we know that it's only gonna be 12,000 now that we're a year down the road?
Through the chair, we've continued to look at pricing, and we're looking for used units still as well. So we, again, it might not be 12,000. It's funds that we were projecting would get removed from the reserves and didn't, and so it'll be removed in when we purchase a unit.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions on those 487 lines of the budget?
Great job.
Well, very detailed presentation is all we can say.
Yeah, just a comment, Chair, if I may, at our first budget meeting, we went through all those lines and
Yeah.
These were the only changes that were there, and I think you did a fantastic job highlighting the changes for us so we know exactly where they are and what they are. Thank you.
Vandenberg?
Yeah, I'm just curious if I may ask, I know that 186, we're looking at an 8.6% increase. What is the same for 187 and 188? What are they looking at for taxation?
When the West 188 also had an 8% increase, and Central had a 3% increase. Central had a lot of significant increases in previous years, and there was a few 10 and 15% increases in past years, so.
And it's worthwhile to look at it from a dollar perspective, not only percentage perspective. Particularly West is very different from a dollar perspective versus the percentage perspective.
And I respect that, but when you're having conversations with the public, and I know we're going to get it, it's nice to be able to present something to them that they can understand and have a reason for it. Throwing a bunch of numbers at them, lose them. Percentages, people will kind of get that.
Yeah.
The difficulty with telling people it's a percentage increase is they think that's an increase to do what we've always done, and that is very much not the case. Because the increases both in the tipping fees and in the taxation requisition are to do what we have not done.
Why it's nice to have that narrative to go with it.
Yeah, and so that'll be the challenge. This isn't status quo or business as usual by any means. We have numerous capital projects, new requirements to meet at all times. And that's why the biggest part of the lift is in front of the taxpayer. It's not status quo.
And that's actually beneficial for us to have that narrative, like here are the key things that are influencing this, you know. The reserve or the capital that we have to spend on this, or, you know, the amount coming across the scales have gone down, so then, you know, you have to adjust, and whatever that narrative is, you know, people can grasp that and walk away from it.
But it is not a 15-second soundbite. We should maybe move along.
Oh, I thought we were, sorry.
No, it is fair, but how we're gonna express that at a public meeting, that's something we need to work on.
Yeah.
We do have next item is item 6, Udashenya prepaid tagging system investigation. This was a notice of motion from Director Davidoff to made at West Resource to come to joint. It did not come to joint in December. It is here now for us to have a conversation, and it is really looking for a direction to staff to investigate an option. So I will ask Director Davidoff to open, realizing I think we're not going to solve the question or come up with a new system, but this is just the introduction.
ECM does to your valve.
I don't think that's on the agenda.
Yeah.
No, that's on it. I'm sorry. You need to refer that to or
Like you said.
Director's motion to what? Director Davidoff on item 6.
Yes, Chair, I'd like to read the motion and see if I get a seconder. So to investigate prepaid tagging system and deposit options at the Odishenya landfill to increase efficiency and to decrease tipping scale choke point for users only depositing 4 bags or less and recycling materials. So if there's a seconder, I will open.
I see a second. Go ahead and open.
Thank you very much. So Odishenya landfill is my hometown. I grew up in Odishenya, so spent a lot of time at the landfill. And Henny, I saw that. So basically, and just anecdotally, some of us took our dates to the Odishenya landfill because that's where you had 8 or 9 bears there just chewing away, on the.
No,
on
it
the
is
landfill.
late in the day though.
Yeah, it is late in the day. But all jokes aside, we have a choke point at the scale. And there's some people, and I talk to everybody whenever I go there, and I'm there quite often. I've got my own little transfer station at home, but when I need to go, I go to the landfill. So here's what I'm hearing. People are saying to me, our patrons are saying, Andy, why do I have to go through the weigh scale if I have 2 bags? And I have to wait, and the process takes, and then you have to weigh in and come back through the scale again. And I said, I don't know. This is the system we have. We're looking at a second scale. That might help. But then you keep talking to people over a course of many, couple of years. I says, okay, you got 1 bag? Just throw it in the back of my truck. You don't have to give me anything. I'll pay for it. And just as a convenience, because we're standing like 20 cars, waiting. And so the idea came, and it's not mine completely. The idea came, well, why can't we pay for a bag or two and then just bypass the scale completely and just deposit it with the paid tag on there? We've got attendants at where we deposit it, show them the tag, show them the bags and dump it in, and then just come right back and not have to go through the scale. And I says, geez, that sounds like a pretty simple process. Can we do that? I don't know. I could check with staff. So the motion is if you got 4 bags or less and you don't have any loose materials that you need to deposit in the landfill, and you just have recycling and your bags, why can't we do that? Because you bypass the scale coming in and you bypass the scale going out. So that's what the motion's all about. Can we do this? Can staff look into this? Is there a way of doing it? And the respectful request is that we investigate this option.
So I think we have the context outlined fairly well. Of course, we can open it for discussion. It is open for discussion. It's been moved and seconded. The staff, do you have enough information here already that you could come back with some preliminary look at how this may fold into the bigger project that you already have on the books?
Do you want to start?
Sure, I'll start. I mean, I don't have a problem at all looking into it. I will point out that staff is extremely busy and we keep getting things, even like illegal dumping and the textiles and things, and these are things that we want to work on, but we have to be careful about where we're scheduling this in. And I don't think that this is a simple fix. Who's going to administer the bags? How are they going to be sold? We'll likely need another staff person at the bin wall. So there's a whole new, we have to assess all the expenses with it. There's a lot of traffic flow concerns and how we're going to know that people are going to go the right way and not cause, and how do we make sure that people are depositing things and paying for them at some point? And are they going to drive? They're going to drive through the recycling anyways. Just like there's a lot to assess in traffic flow, administrative tags. These are our low revenue customers, I would point out as well. So we're kind of accommodating things. The bag tag customers they're essentially their bags that they're paying for. We expend that money just coming across the scale, let alone managing their waste at the other end. And then the other consideration is we have this congestion at a number of our big sites. Are we going to look at this elsewhere? So this could be a bit of a Pandora's box, but I don't have a problem looking into it. It's just that there's a lot of considerations, and I would say that it's with these considerations and where I think it would end up. I don't know that it would be a high priority, but that's for the board to direct us.
If I may add to this, so the other complexity to this is, as Amy already pointed out, we will be in February coming with the entrance area design. This suggestion potentially impacts the design if we have to design this into it, modify the current design. It is very likely that we will lose the window to do the entrance construction in 2026 and have to push it out to 2027 with all the impacts that may have to the overall schedule, filling schedules that we have, and moving the entrance area out of the way to use it for future disposal. So there's other impacts that we need to look at. I think it's impossible to do the review by next month, effectively 2 weeks from now. And that's the struggle that I'm seeing, that we are trying to do the entrance design and parallel try now to have a review that may or may not impact the entrance design piece.
Okay, so that's staff's context. Thanks. So just taking a couple notes, we will have to get a set of minutes from this to staff to go on the agenda tonight. So we'll be referring everything else after the side aside from public time. But I have three speakers, Watson, Vandenberg, Popoff at this time. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Just on your note on process, we have to be able to go into in-camera to make the referral. So no, you'll have to do that process.
Yeah.
And in terms of timing, while I don't have enough info to say if this is really a valid exploration for staff, I in no way support this trumping any of the other things on your current work plan, and it should go accordingly, chronologically towards the end of your, whatever's currently on your list. That's my only comment.
Okay, thank you. Vandenberg?
Yes, the only thing I didn't quite capture is with this methodology, is it eliminating the across the scale portion? Because that is the information that we're trying to track and trend, and so we don't want to be bypassing the scale.
Through the chair, correct. I believe the intention would be that they would purchase their tags elsewhere. I'm not sure where, or possibly.
So you still have to queue up to the scale.
Well, I think the intention, I understand, would be that you buy a stack of tags somewhere, whether it's at the site or the rec center or here at the office or online. I don't know how that would look, but you would then just, like someone at the curbside, you would just tag your bags, and then someone at the bin, whether it's the same bin or a different bin, depending on how we direct traffic, someone would just make sure that your bag has a tag on it. So we would still get some information by the sale of the bag tags, but we wouldn't know, people might not use them, and then so we wouldn't necessarily get the traffic numbers and what bags were deposited in different days, weeks,
Right, we
months.
would be weighing them.
We wouldn't be, we wouldn't be weighing them. We could go to the bin.
It's a little less back forth.
I know, but we're gonna speed things up.
Yes, it would be having to weigh the bin and going to the active base.
To get proper amounts. Director Popoff.
Two questions, and I will try to be quick. And I think most of the answers have been provided here. One, what we're working on a second scale, will that resolve the problem? That was the first question. Second question, for you to go ahead with this recommendation and do a study or et cetera, does that have to be in the budget? The cost involved?
Through the chair, the second scale will alleviate some of the traffic flow, or I can't say if it'll fix the problem, but it would reduce, because there would be two streams of traffic. And I think this assessment that we would look at to start would just be staffing, so there wouldn't be a budget adjustment.
Part of the problem is too, that we have these traffic congestions at specific times in the week. Most sites, including Roman, there's times and you can go there and you have no problems for the majority of the week, and Otoshania no different. But you have specific times in the week that you have these peaks. And these are generally created by residential users with a couple of bags in the periods that we have pre-wood waste. Right? These are the peak periods in the year. And some of the questions, do we want to design around these peaks that cause us headaches to accommodate some traffic flow issues in these very few times of the week? And are we, by accommodating it, invite more of that type of traffic? There is waste, there's curbside services in most areas available that people could take advantage of if they feel like, if they feel that the traffic flow and the having to line up is a significant problem, right? So this is part of the discussion. What do we want to accommodate and at what price?
Don't see any new speakers. Generally, Director David Off, I'd expect you'd want to close. Do you have any brief closing comments?
Yes, I promised that I would raise this. What I really am concerned about is a safety issue. People get really upset and then they are nasty to our attendants. When you're in line, which I have been, 45 minutes to drop off a couple of bags, rest assured They come speeding out of I watch them. They come speeding out. We've got a speed limit there. Once they dropped off their bags, they're firing through the landfill like you wouldn't believe, at breakneck speed, some of them, and we should be taking license numbers. But they're so frustrated with having to wait 45 minutes. And yes, it's not like every minute of every day, but if there's some way to relieve that pressure, even if we did that, until we get a second scale, I promised I would bring it here, and I've honored my commitment.
Noted, and I guess it was not a closing. I was looking for other comments, Director Cunningham. Well, call the question. I will call for a 2/3 vote to suspend Robert's rules. Questions been asked to call the question. I will call for a 2/3 vote to suspend debate and go to the question. We're gonna just do this. And then people only use that term when it matters. Do you approve, calling the question? In
Yes.
favor? 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 Yes.
Yes.
Question? Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
No.
No, who votes?
I'm asking everyone to vote. Are you in favor of calling the question now?
Yes.
All vote.
Call the
In
question,
favor
yes.
of, call the question?
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
No. I'm actually in favor. Director Davidoff? In favor of calling the question? Yes or no, please, sir?
You can't hear you, you're muted.
You're muted.
I would say no. If Hans has a question, I
No,
think I'd
thank-
honor
thank
that.
you.
Thanks.
Bullard? Yes. McLaren Cole? Gordon, Director Gordon?
Yes.
So I will call the question. All in favor of the recommendation? Please show of hands. I don't want to go around the room. All opposed to okay, so we're calling the question now. 2/3 vote. So all in favor of the question, which is the recommendation to investigate prepaid tagging systems and deposit options to Shane. All in favor of that recommendation going to board? Raise your hands, please. I see one hand raised, all opposed. It's defeated. Thanks very much. When you say call the question, you should follow that procedure. It's quite formal.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we have an item of correspondence for receipt. I propose that we refer this to the February joint meeting, moved and then seconded. All in favor of referral? We have an agenda. If we will go into close.
You need public time.
Oh, sorry, public time. So following public time, we're gonna go into closed and then refer that agenda the next month. So please don't leave. So looking for questions from the public, our sole member of the public has left us online. Are there any members of the public who wish to? Oh, yes. Any online, is there any member of the public wishing to ask a question of this committee? If so, please unmute now and ask your question. Just giving it a second, observer or public listener, do you have a question for this committee? So hearing none, there were no questions from public at 4:40 local time. So to ask for a motion to close the meeting to the public, moved, seconded, all in favor? Motion to recess and reconvene in camera. Moved and seconded, all in favor, any opposed?